arriving into Emilifeni, so N4 eastbound. Just trying to avoid that, or travel later might be a good call. Durban, traffic lights are still down. M7 at South Coast Road. That's likely to be very slow. In Cape Town, you've got back to school, as the rest of the country has today. You've got back to school volleys, but you've also got a big dose of rain to deal with as well. So go as early as you possibly can. Conditions will be slow. They already are. The M2 in from Khayelitsha towards the M5 is carrying a lot of volume, and big traffic out of Mitchell's Plain this morning. M7 up to Morgansteer, and then M7 through Highlands up to Samora Michelle. That's all very heavy, and a lot of traffic seems to be avoiding that, jamming up Spine Road, exiting to Strandfontein, and Baden-Powell is heavy to Strandfontein Road. Those lights were down yesterday. Looks like they might be out again this morning, causing delays towards Muizenberg. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
In sports this hour, Leicester City makes unwanted history with the 8th consecutive home loss in Varsity Cup action. Shimlers are heading to a home final after dominant win, setting up a showdown with UCT Keys. And in Augusta, rain clouds rolled in to delay the start of the Masters, throwing early tea times into Desiree. More details at 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Today is Tuesday, the 8th of April, 2025, live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg. We are SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Welcome to it, the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. Here's what's coming up on the show today. Announcing a raft of tariffs on scores of countries around the world, the US President Donald Trump declared last Wednesday, the 2nd of April, the day of the announcement. He declared it Liberation Day for the United States. In practice, it would seem the only liberation that has occurred, at least up to this point, is of the undesirable kind. Liberation of the global economy from the much-needed growth-supporting stability amidst an unprecedented threat to the global rules-based trade and economic system. So we'll have two takes on that story for you this morning because it is a story of much consequence. At 6:45, at about 6:45, I'll be speaking to agriculture economist Wandile Slobo, and we'll be unpacking how the 30% tariff, so there's the 30% that is called part of the Liberation Day, quote-unquote, Liberation Day tariffs that Trump announced. So the 30% tariffs on South Africa, what impact that will make on the country's agricultural exports to the United States. Wandile Slobo penning a comprehensive piece over the last few days that basically sums up how those tariffs will make our agricultural exports to the U.S. uncompetitive and what we can do about it in reaction to that. So Wandile Slobo is my guest at 6:45. Then at 7:20, I'll be speaking to the economist Azar Jammine, and we'll be breaking it down. He'll be breaking down the history of tariffs and the nitty-gritty of the global trade system that now seems to be under threat, and explaining why it is that the argument is constantly made by economists that tariffs just hinder the free flow of trade and why that is a bad thing. So my conversation with Azar Jammine coming up at about 7:20. So as if we don't have enough troubles with the United States as it stands, by virtue of merely being a country that exists and a country that trades with them one way or another, we are still dealing with domestic lobby groups holding meetings with U.S. officials, meetings whose agendas are opaque at least, at best, if not outrightly suspicious. The latest group to do so is the Farmers Organization, TLUSA. Its leader, Benny van Zyl, will talk to me at about 6:50 to tell us a bit more about the meeting that they held recently in Pretoria with representatives of the Agriculture Department of the United States. What's that all about? A lot of suspicion hangs about that particular meeting. So I'll be speaking to Benny van Zyl at about 6:50 this morning. In the third hour of the show, I want to flag this story for you. And it's coming up at about 8. The Brenthurst Foundation has done research, and its research director, Ray Hartley, will tell me about it. A recent survey that they conducted among registered voters in this country, which found that the overwhelming majority, about 70% of those people that they surveyed, are unhappy with the direction that the country is headed. So Ray Hartley will be my guest at about 8:20 this morning. Of course, the whole team is raring to go at your service once again this morning. And Musa with news updates, Rob Byrne with your traffic, Dumin Khapele in for Zaikan this morning with your sport covered, Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief, and that's coming up shortly. Dowling Lechela with your economics, business and market news. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 7 a.m. Through it all, I'm taking your calls. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll also take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, on X, we are at SAFM Radio, and we are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and we are live as always on our YouTube channel. That is SAFM Radio. This is SAFM. We're leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Get tested this April at Specsavers, and we'll give you a free optical frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's check in with Melissa Buta now with this morning's Morning Brief in brief. Good morning to you, Melissa.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
I'm good. So let's start with this story. It's been a bit of a talking point. The Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, is intending to amend the Private Security Industry Regulation Act. It has to do with the kinds of weapons that the private security industry can carry, does it?
Yes. So the latest amendment, it's saying that it includes quite strict regulations on the types of weapons and ammunition that private security firms are allowed to use. It also requires them to apply 7 days in advance to use weapons such as rubber bullets, tear gas, tasers, and water cannons. However, this amendment, the private security industry of South Africa is saying that it's impractical and it's lacking consultation with the industry or the public, and going to be quite a big burden on both the security industry and...
Melissa, can you still hear us?
Yes,
I
can hear you.
Sorry, the line was breaking a little bit there. I think it has improved now. So tell me about the second story that we're covering. I think a lot of content creators will love this story. Tell me about the Minister of Communications and what he's had to say about TikTok and monetizing content.
The Minister of Communications, also Malati, is advocating for TikTok content creators in South Africa who contribute.
Melissa, I tell you what, let's try and get you on a better line. We're really not getting the full benefit of this particular conversation. So let's see if we can get Melissa on a better line. She is covering helping complete the picture for you in terms of the stories that we are covering this morning, as well as those that we don't necessarily have on our diary this morning because we only have 3 hours to cover everything. I believe we have you on a better line, Melissa. Pick up where you left off. I was saying that the Minister of Communications has some proposals that I believe that will have a lot of TikTok content creators quite excited.
Of course. So Solly Malatsi is saying that South African content creators on the TikTok platform contribute quite significantly to global culture, and he's advocating for them to be paid. In the past, we have had content creators on the platform say they put in quite a lot of work, and it's unfair that the TikTok Creator Fund is not allowing for them to, be included in that, while US, Europe, and other parts of Asia are making quite a significant amount of money from the content that they put out on this platform. So Solly is busy currently in talks trying to get these creators also to be recognized for their work and to be paid.
And we have had rains almost, for the last few months, quite heavy rains, especially in the area around Gauteng. This has led to dam levels improving, not just improving, going beyond capacity. Tell me what the Department of Water and Sanitation is doing to try and control those dam levels.
The department has opened a fifth sluice gate at the Vaal Dam after water levels surged to 106%. They've also initiated emergency evacuations in the area. However, this has not made everyone happy because it's going to impact, the properties, livestock losses, and significant revenue losses for local businesses. Local businesses in the area are complaining that while, this is a safety measure and it's good, however, it's coming out of the blue, and the department could have dealt with this in a better way. They could have maintained the levels at 100%. However, they've allowed them to exceed that, and now it puts, people, the community, and businesses at such a big risk.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that, Melissa. That's Melissa Puta there with this morning's morning brief in brief, just giving you a sense of some of the stories that we are covering and those that we are not able to get to. In fact, on that story, Melissa's last story about the Vaal Dam in particular, we are scheduled to speak to a representative of the Water and Sanitation Department, and that conversation is coming up at about 10 to 8 this morning.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
18 minutes after 6. Let's give you a sense of what your weather will be looking like on this Tuesday morning. 2 impact-based warnings coming through from the Weather Service. The first one, yellow level 4. It says severe thunderstorms leading to damage or loss of infrastructure, settlements, both formal and informal, property, vehicles, livelihood, and livestock. Those conditions are expected over the Northern Cape, western parts of the Northwest, and the Free State. The second is a yellow level 2 warning. It says severe thunderstorms leading to flooding of susceptible roads, low-lying areas and bridges, as well as localized damage to settlements. Those conditions are expected over the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, the northern and extreme western parts of the Eastern Cape, southwestern Gauteng, as well as the eastern parts of the Free State and the Northwest. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 26. Johannesburg, cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 15 to 23. Bombela will be partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, 19 to 28. Mahikeng, Polokwane will be partly cloudy, 15 to 28. Mahikeng will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 17 to 25. Bloemfontein will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 16 to 23. Kimberley will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 17 to 24. Uppington will be cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 18 to 26. Cape Town will have morning and evening fog patches, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 17 to 20. George will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 17 to 20. Gqeberha will be cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, 19 to 23. East London, partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 20 to 27. Durban will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 22 to 27. Richards Bay, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 22 to 30. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 16 to 28.
From Engutu to a Durban, twins born with one dream, Maskandi greatness, millions, fame and family. Will money tear them apart or unite them? Brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, starts April 2025, weekdays at 6:30 on SABC1.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 minutes after 6, let's turn to this story now. The United States has initiated a full-scale military assault on Houthi forces in Yemen, marking an escalation in the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. This intervention follows recent threats from Yemeni armed groups to target Israeli-linked vessels in the Red Sea. The U.S.'s response, including increased military deployments, highlights its growing involvement in the region amidst the broader Israel-Palestine conflict and a rising humanitarian crisis. Let's speak to Timothy Walker, who is maritime project leader and senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Timothy, good morning and thank you for your time once again. So talk to me about the escalation in this conflict. It's a few weeks ago, you and I were talking about military strikes being launched by the United States on Houthi targets. It seems that situation is escalating.
Good morning, and thank you for asking me back on the show, and good morning to all your listeners too. There do seem to be signals that the US is prepared to escalate this conflict, or rather preparing itself to potentially strike further targets. It has launched several large-scale and very destructive attacks, often killing several civilians as well. But I'm not quite sure about the full-scale aspect yet. It does imply a sort of invasion angle, ground forces, which is, I don't think is going to be the case at all. Yeah. They do have put another aircraft carrier in the region, and one United States aircraft carrier has a huge amount of firepower too, as well as several aircraft positioned on American bases around the region, which have already been used to strike targets within Yemen. I'm thinking in particular of its B-2s, the stealth bombers. There are several of them on a major U.S. base in the Indian Ocean, and that has been well noted. The large number of them gathered in one area is raising a lot of questions, and it doesn't seem necessarily yet to be bringing a measure of or a sense of security to shipping companies. I know we want to focus on, we really must more in terms of global attention on the humanitarian situation, but the attacks, the American attacks, as well as the Houthi justification or the reason why they're attacking ships is linked to strangling global trade as much as it is to the situation in Gaza.
Yeah, and I saw a report, I think it was on CNN, talking about they were saying far from being cowed by these attacks by the United States, the Houthis actually relish them and look forward to it. Why would that be?
The Houthi are looking, in a sense, I say the leadership of the Houthi are looking to extend or even escalate, in a sense, as well, this conflict and pressure Israel to a greater extent, and to do that really does seem to have been a decision which sets them on a path where attacks, many attacks on civilians, on civilian areas, those will continue for the time being because they are drawing attention. And I'm not saying they're using people as a human shield, but the more attacks which are occurring, the more attention which is drawn to not just the Houthi as a major resistor of what they see as the major global issue, but also as a champion, as drawing domestic support. Many people, unfortunately, in Yemen for well over a decade, even before the Houthi seized control of just under half the country, have been in a situation of terrible starvation and malnutrition, and civilians have suffered tremendously of a previous intervention in the country from Saudi Arabia and UAE-led coalition. So people there have, unfortunately, a long history of sorry to say, suffering and a very bad humanitarian situation, which has really been struggling. People have been struggling to address. There's been UN workers who've been kidnapped in the last few weeks by the Houthi, and a lot of UN work, humanitarian work, has unfortunately been suspended in the country as well, which does imply sometimes that the Houthi are prepared to tolerate a lot of suffering amongst the civilian population, not in the entire country, but in particular in the parts of the country where they have control.
Yeah. Lastly then, Timothy, and very briefly for me, tell me about the disruption to global trade and the shipment routes that we're talking about. The Red Sea and the Suez Canal, I'm told, and this has implications for traffic flowing all the way across, all the way to Southern Africa.
Yes, the number of vessels which normally or would choose to transit through the Red Sea has declined quite a lot. If you would look at a map online of shipping signals going through that area, there's a lot of ships still going through there. Those tend to be either quite, you might say, low value. The Houthi are, when they look to target a ship, they often claim they're targeting that with a genuine Israeli connection. That has not really been the case. Unfortunately, almost about 70% of the attacks have no genuine connection to Israel in any way, or if they do, they're very tenuous. It often tends to be like maybe the ship 10 years ago went into Israeli waters. That kind of connection is a bit weak. So a lot of ships aren't prepared to take the risk because it's so arbitrary. And that means more ships have come around the Cape in the last year.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Timothy Walker, Maritime Project Leader and Senior Researcher at the Institute for Security Studies.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Dumi, good morning. So it's a bit of a cliche, but it doesn't rain. It pours for Leicester City.
Absolutely. Very good morning to you. Starting off with football, Leicester City have become the first side in the Premier League history to lose 8 consecutive home games after losing 3-0 to Newcastle. The Foxes have not found the back of the net since the 8th of December, and this result sees them rooted at 19th on the log, while the Magpies moved to 5th above Manchester City on 53 points, level with 4th place Chelsea with a match in hand. Meanwhile, Banyana veteran Nompumelelo Nyandeni says that she's very glad for the long wait for her 150th cap that is over. Today's match between Banyana and Malawi will be Nyandeni's farewell match, with the 37-year-old retiring from international football.
I've been waiting for 6 years because my last game was 2019. So for me, I was not giving up because Maupega, I was playing in my team JVW, so I was prepared if coach angizile, so ungithola ukuthi ready ukuthi ngirepresent the country for the last time. So for me now, I was ready. I didn't give up.
In varsity rugby, the Marties beat UFS Shimlas 1917 in Stellenbosch to set up a home final showdown with UCT Ikeys. Ikeys completed the double over UP Tucks to book their place in the final with a thrilling 48-35 win. In tennis, Daniil Medvedev advanced to the second round of the Monte Carlo Masters after beating Karen Kachanov 7-5, 4-6 and 6-4. Gael Monfils beat Fabian Marazan 4-6, 6-1 and 6-1. And Matteo Berrettini set up a second round meeting with top seed Alexander Zverev after winning in straight sets against Mariano Navone. Finally, in golf, the start of the Masters week has been delayed delayed by rain with practice rounds pushed back. It starts or begins on Thursday, with Rory McIlroy renewing his bid to win a first green jacket and complete golf's career Grand Slam, where he will face competition from defending champion Scottie Scheffler. With that said, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has highlighted the importance of partnership between business and law enforcement in the fight against crime. The IFP has defended its decision to vote for the 2025 budget, which Parliament passed last week. It has highlighted the importance of the country's economic stability. And the Enyobeni inquest has been adjourned until Thursday in the East London Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. The court will continue to show video footage of what happened on the night on which 21 patrons died in June 2022. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Reminder about the protest action just on the western side of Emeletheni. It has blocked off the N4 this morning. KG Mall area, if you like, both ways under pressure. It's that section of road between Bronkhorstspruit and Emeletheni. So if you're going that way, expect delays. We can certainly see traffic on our monitoring systems backlogging both ways, and I guess ultimately some diversion to alternative routes. Busy coming into Joburg this morning from Protea Glen. There's delays on the N12 approaching the Golden Highway exit at El Dorado Park, and a lot of pressure around the Crown. The Micro one already from Boyson's up towards Smith Street. Behind that, M2 coming in from Joe Slovo looking pretty heavy as well. Roadworks on the R21 south near the Bobsfontein exit, just starting to slow traffic as you come through Bobsfontein down towards the Benoni off-ramp. So just make sure you've got that extra time to get through Pretoria to the airport for those important flight connections. Durban, still no traffic lights. M7 at South Coast Road, with schools going back today. That could be a little bit busier than it was yesterday. Pietermaritzburg down to Durban. Checks okay. Nothing too outrageous to hold you up there. And Cape Town, it's busy, not only back to school, but also some wet weather conditions as well. The N2 queuing up passing Khayelitsha. Then from the airport all the way through to Mowbray Main Road, a crash on Voortrekker and Holt in Elsie's. Voortrekker and 3rd in the Kensington Maitland area. And traffic lights down Baden-Powell at Strandfontein Road. You got caught coming out of Muizenberg last night. You're getting caught coming through from Mitchell's Plain towards Muizenberg along that coastal route this morning. It's pretty heavy without traffic lights there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's say good morning to Ndawling Lechela. So Ndawling, great deal of concern all round. First, Trump hit China with tariffs. China retaliated. I think it's 34%. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. And now the U.S. president is talking about a further escalation against China.
That's right, Thulas. Really a tit for tat between the two nations. U.S. President Trump is back at it. He has threatened to slap an additional 50% tariff on Chinese goods imported to the U.S. if China does not withdraw its 34% counter tariff. Now, this move has sparked more fears of a deepening trade war between the world's two largest economies. Trump's threat comes after China retaliated against the U.S.'s 34% tariff on Chinese imports, which was introduced as part of Trump's Liberation Day policy. Now, the potential impact of the move is significant, with U.S. companies facing a total tariff rate of 104% on Chinese imports if that 50% tariff is pushed through. Now, this would be a blow to China's manufacturers who rely on the U.S. market for their exports. China's top exports to the U.S. include electrical products, machinery, computers, furniture, toys, vehicles, and equipment. Now, in response to the threat, China has accused the U.S. of economic bullying and vowed to firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. So we could possibly see China retaliate with another tariff. Now, the Chinese embassy in the U.S. has stated that pressuring or threatening China is not a right way to engage, and that the U.S.'s actions are a form of unilateralism, protectionism, and economic bullying.
So we started this conversation yesterday in Ndawling. Take it forward for us. How the Trump administration calculated what tariff to charge, especially in relation to a country like ours?
So the Trump administration really facing major backlash over the method it's used to calculate tariffs. Now, instead of applying a fixed rate or percentage to the value of imported goods, it's actually based on a country's trade imbalance with the US, specifically the difference between US imports and exports. So basically the trade deficit, right? Now, this method involves dividing the trade deficit by the total value of American imports from that nation. Now, let's use China as an example. The U.S. goods trade deficit with China was $295.4 billion, with U.S. imports from China totaling $438.9 billion. Now, those figures are then divided, resulting in a calculated tariff rate of about 67%. Now, initially, when Trump pushed through the reciprocal tariffs last week, he said he was being quote-unquote lenient and would charge nations half that rate, giving us 33.5%. When rounded up, that's 34%, that the tariff it imposed on the world's second largest economy. Same method was applied to South Africa. U.S. businesses imported $14.7 billion worth of goods from South Africa last year, while the exports to the country totaled $5.8 billion, bringing the trade deficit to about $8.8 billion. And to determine the tariff rate, the trade deficit of $8.8 billion divided by the value of imports of about $14.7 billion, this calculation brings us to 60%. Then that was divided by 2, bringing us to the 30% tariff that was imposed on the country. Now, in the case where there was a surplus, a flat reciprocal tariff of 10% was applied.
Yeah. So we are one of those countries where there was a trade deficit against the U.S. and in favor of South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Please give us our first roundup of market activity for the morning.
So the sell-off seems to be easing, with U.S. stocks closing mixed. The Nasdaq managing to rebound, gaining 0.1% in yesterday's session. Local markets also in a recovery mode after the turmoil fueled by Trump's tariffs. The all share closing over 0.75% higher, and that being boosted by a near 2.7% jump in the Resources 10 complex. The rand not faring well this morning as growth concerns weigh. Some economists have even revised their outlook on the local unit, with some saying it could reach lows of 22 against the greenback. At the moment, it's currently sitting at 19.48 to the dollar. Then over in Asia, stocks taking a breather as the sell-off pauses. Stocks in the green this morning, despite the tit-for-tat playing out between the US and China.
All right, thank you for that. That's the first update there from Dowling. Look out for more of her insights. She'll be back with more for you just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
When your business expands, it's time to look for the kind of space that'll offer it more than square meters on a plan. At Dube Tradeport, we're a place for high-value manufacturing, efficient air cargo logistics, and advanced future farming technology. Doesn't that sound like a place where your business can take shape? If so, move your business to Dube Tradeport and grow beyond potential.
Hey Msansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our blue sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from only 942,000 Rand or just 9,999 per month when financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, primeless 5%, 40% residual. And remember, every blue sky offer comes standard with our Ford family promise. That's just 9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Africa Update on SAFM.
All right, for that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. We start right here in Johannesburg, in Gauteng. Tell me about the AU African Peer Review Mechanism and the retreat that they are holding. Good governance is under the spotlight there.
Refreshing morning to us and Jumbo Africa to listeners. Indeed, that is the end of the day-to-day to us of the retreat between the two organs of the African Union, the AU Peace and Security Council and the Africa peer review mechanism. Thulas, as you have said, the chairperson of the panel of eminent persons from Algeria, Ambassador Ariata Ali, yesterday mentioned how Africa should be on top of the game, considering what is currently happening in various conflicts, but the question of good governance acting as a foundation for building resilience, preventing conflicts, and sustaining peace across Africa. Sudan was mentioned yesterday, Thulas, the DRC, the conflict in the Sahel region, but also important, the implication also of the U.S. tariffs against many African countries and the issue of U.S. aid for development. Those are the issues that have come out very sharply, but also the anniversary of the 22nd year of the Africa Peer Review, mounting that Thulas, out of 44 member states, already 26 review reports have been done, the country reports, but member states, Thulas, they don't follow the recommendations to the latter. People just receive reports, Thulas, and shelve them, and they gather dust.
Yeah. And then in the Sahel region, Sipho, we're starting to get a sense of the security approach of this new alliance of Sahel states. Tell me why they are recalling their ambassadors to Algeria.
Thulas, it is the issue around an issue of the surveillance of the drone a week ago that Algeria accuses Mali for having violated some of their airspace by over 2 kilometers. And that has made the Sahelian states, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, to recall their ambassadors from Algiers. At the same time, the Sahelian states, they are looking at the issue of the violation of international law, saying that that was irresponsible. We know since the Sahel countries moved out of ECOWAS, they've been having their own thinking how they deal with security issues, but having a conflict with Algeria, it is concerning to us, considering that Algeria has not been one of the provoking parties, but probably what Mali has done to us they have jumped the line in terms of engaging on that drone. We don't know what was the drone all about to us, but we know drones are all about surveillance.
Yeah. And then in the DRC, Sipho, give us an update. Not only is the conflict raging in the eastern part of the country, with some engagements, of course, taking place, but also now this natural disaster in Kinshasa.
I think it was only raining in the southern hemisphere. In the Central Africa also, we see in the DRC that over these past days, they've been having heavy floods that have also killed 22 people. It takes us back to 2022, where Kinshasa, when it was flooding, it lost 100 people. Now the government is trying through the Minister of Health, Patricia Nongo, to deal with the damages that have been caused by this rain, this heavy rains that has caused flood, including the road to the airport, between the capital city and the rest of the DRC. Now it seems that the government is acting on humanitarian response, as there are many people who have lost their lives. People have been hospitalized. People, they don't have houses. There are already 75 families who are housed nearby the stadium in the capital city of Kinshasa.
And in your historical archives, Sipho, take me to the 8th of April, 1905. A great daughter of the soil was born.
That's quite true. 120 years ago, and when people pass coming to SABC, they will pass that hospital and they ask themselves, what is in the name Helen Joseph? This was a teacher, social worker, political activist, a member of the African National Congress who was born on this day in 1905. The name was Helen Beatrice May Fennell Joseph Thulas. Very important that he was born in London, but he got his husband in Durban. That's where he got married in Durban in the late 1930s to Billy Joseph. Hence the name had to change from Helen Beatrice May Fennell to Helen Joseph. A famous trade unionist, Hence, Thulas was born on this day, but he died on the 25th of December 1992 in Gauteng. He was awarded the ANC highest order of Thulasizwe Simelane medal for her devotion to the liberation struggle as a symbol for defiance, integrity, and courage. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Freedom Month.
All right, that's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update, just giving you a flavor and a sample of some of the key developments around the continent as well as its diaspora.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
I want to take a quick voice note as well as a call. This person wanting to talk about the trade deficit. In fact, let me go to that. The trade deficit between South Africa, I imagine, and the United States. Let's hear what's that about.
Hi, Thulas. So I just have a question. So if our trade deficit is in the billions, so where does this money go? Is it money that goes to SARS? Then how does it explain that we're still having such shortages in budget if you're receiving so much money from trade deficits as well? You're paying so much tax. The math is not matching here.
Yeah.
There's something wrong that's happening in South Africa. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Now, I get the question you're asking, that if we're exporting that much to the United States, being one of the many destinations. But remember, of course, the United States is one of the major destinations for South African exports, and therefore it's a good thing for us, but at the same time it has brought us this attention from Donald Trump, who now says in his calculation we are charging them up to 60% tariffs, and therefore we deserve to be slapped with 30% retaliatory tariffs, according to the U.S. president. Let me take a call from Matthew in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Matthew. You want to talk to me about this story that's about the Trade and Industry and Competition Portfolio Committee, just concerned about what's happening at the South African Bureau of Standards.
Yes, Thulasizwe, and this is very disappointing in terms of the SABS seeming to be the central figure in quality assurance in our country.
Yes.
Now, if they couldn't formulate a plan, or if they couldn't execute their duties in terms of testing quality products, in terms of testing the safety of products, how many products has there been in circulation that are, number one, dangerous, number one, that are not compliant to specifications in terms of safety and quality for consumers? And I think there needs to be a comprehensive investigation in terms of why is it that in terms of the spaza shops and the products that they sell to our kids that died, how much is that a direct impact of what has happened in our country for the past year and a half or 2 years? I think you will find that the collapse of the SABS is in direct reflection of what happened.
Absolutely, spot on.
To the quality and the consumers.
Matthew, thank you for flagging that story, and I do believe that we should bring it front and center, even here on the show. It's an important task that the SABS is mandated to carry out, ensuring quality of products in our market. And if they are failing, or perhaps there are concerns about its performance, we really should bring it under the spotlight.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A reminder, on-off protesting around the Emelefeni area, KG Mall area, so we're talking just on the western side of Emelefeni, but it will affect motorists going between Bronkhorstspruit and Emelefeni. It was cleared earlier. They've come back this morning, burning tyres and road blockage and some diverting pressures and certainly some queuing pressures on the N4 as well. If you don't fancy it, travel later once the authorities have managed to get that situation under control. But there is quite a significant backlog of traffic in that area. N1 coming through from Pretoria down through Midrand. Well, it's back to school day today, so let's check the latest. Looks okay, moving between sort of Linwood Road and Boerta Avenue, John Foster. That section's fine. When you get through Brockfontein, you hit the wall of traffic down to New Road. Roadworks on the R21, approaching the R23 Benoni exit. That's quite slow this morning. It's normally a really heavy sort of afternoon scenario, but this morning it is queuing, so make sure Pretoria down to the airport for those flight connections. You've got that time to get through. And 12 Protea Glen coming in towards Eldorado Park as you pass the Nasia up to Golden Highway. That's pretty heavily back this morning as well. A lot of traffic around Pinetown, just outside Durban. The M7 up over St John's Avenue Bridge is particularly badly backed up. Queuing pressure on the Pietermaritzburg bypass as well. If you're Durban bound, just between sort of Chota, Motala, and I guess New England Road around Ortman Road. Looks like something's happened there on the N3 going south. And Cape Town all fairly busy, not only back to school, but a dose of wet weather to drive through this morning. I've just sent a tweet out saying if you're driving Cape Town, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. It's certainly a lot busier this morning morning than it has been over the last week or so. A couple of examples of that. The M3 is very heavily back beyond the Constantia exit all the way up to Paradise Road. N1 is literally full from Brackenfell right through to Coburg Interchange, and Mitchell's Plain, the M7 heading north out of the area. Big backlogs from sort of Morgansteer side right through some roadworks up at Samora Michelle. Local routes around that M7 corridor are also heavy. Oh, and no lights. Baden-Powell at Strandfontein. So coming through from Mitchell's Plain on your way to Muizenberg, jam-packed along that coast route. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
They say fortune can change lives, but does it change who you are? From Engoto to a Durban, twins born into struggle, now with millions in their hands. But with wealth comes division. One twin raised with responsibility, the other treated like royalty. Two paths, one dream, Maskandi greatness. Brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, where money, family and betrayal collide. Starts April 2025, weekdays at 6:30, only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
8 minutes to 7. The country's agricultural exports to the United States, such as citrus, wines, grapes, and fruit juices, will likely bear the brunt of President Donald Trump's recently announced so-called Liberation Day tariffs on all products entering that country. In terms of that announcement made last week on Wednesday, which Trump dubbed America's Liberation Day, goods exported from South Africa into the United States will be subject to up to 30% tariffs. Let's welcome Wandile Sihlobo, an agricultural economist, to take us through what the implications are for our agricultural exports. Wandile, good morning. Thank you for your time. I read your piece. It was very informative. But let's start here, Wandile. If our exports to the United States, agricultural exports, only account for 4% of our overall agricultural exports, surely we can afford to bear these, can't we?
Thulasizwe, I think when you are looking at it at a national level, it does seem so, because a year we export just around $13.7 billion of agricultural products. But as you rightly say it in your introduction, these 4% of the exports, which in value term is just under $500 million, are concentrated in a few industries. That's your citrus, wine, grapes, fruit juices, and the nuts. But not only concentrated in a few products, they are also concentrated in certain provinces. I'm thinking here the Western Cape, parts of the Eastern Cape, and even certain regions of Mpumalanga. So in a way, it will be felt more strongly there, while at a national level, then the discussion differs as to how you are viewing this, which is why I think for us it's more urgent to engage on this. And secondly, Thulasizwe, we are now about 2 or 3 weeks into the harvest period of the citrus, and thereafter for the export side. So this disruption comes at a critical time. And I think this is why, if you're listening to citrus growers and the others, they've been engaging and urging the South African governments to really make sure that we find some sort of a deal so that this year's activity could continue in that market, because diversification is something that takes some time.
There's another point that you make, Wandile, about the competitiveness of South African agricultural exports in comparison with other countries that, yes, have been hit with tariffs, but their tariff levels are not as high as ours. Tell me a bit more about that.
The thing about the tariffs, unlike what the President of the United States has said, they are paid by the country of the importing country, which is that in this case then the US. We are competing to lie in that US market with the likes of South America, Brazil to be specific, the Australians, Chile, and all of them. If you look at how much tariffs that they are facing, it's a baseline tariff of about 10%. Now, in the case of South Africa, we don't know if per product there will be a specific tariff or all of us will be on that upper band of a 31% tariff that is facing South Africa, and that's the detail that is yet to come. But one point is clear, is that we are facing a relatively higher tariffs than our competitors, which mean then we will be uncompetitive in that US market if you look at how South African products will be priced there, because we are already getting signal that even those that may be importing these products in the US won't have the ability to instantly pass the cost to the consumer. And I think this is where all of this friction is coming about. I think we would be having a far different conversation had South Africa been in a case where we are facing maybe 10% baseline tariffs like our competitors.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Wandile Sihlobo, an agricultural economist.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's give credit to the initial reporting of The Citizen on this story. Curiosity, intrigue, and outright suspicion surrounds a recent meeting in Pretoria between the farmers' organization TLUSA and representatives of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Citizen newspaper cites TLUSA leader Benny Van Zyl confirming that the meeting discussed the recently passed Expropriation Act and the uncertainty that he says it causes, as well as farm attacks and murders. Benny Van Zyl joins me now to tell us a bit more about that meeting. Good morning to you. So there's a great deal of suspicion about this meeting. Clarify for us, clear the air for us. Who did you meet and what did you discuss?
And good morning, Thulasizwe. Yes, this is something that we from TLU South Africa do all these years. We liaise with a lot of embassies, a lot of countries regarding agricultural issues. And at this stage, and all of us know that the United States has a lot of uncertainty and problems with the South African government. And it is open in the air. Everyone knows that. They challenge the South African government for a lot of mishaps and stuff that is going on. And yes, we talk about farm murders, but we talk about the murder rate in South Africa as well. Almost 80 persons per day is murdered in South Africa, and they have this information. No one should think that the United States haven't got the information. They are very, very well informed. And it's not as if we have to tell them anything. They just discuss it with us because they are already informed about all these things. Our concern at this stage is that if we are honest with each other, the policy of the government over years create a lot of uncertainty. And we haven't got the necessary investments in our country. Our infrastructure is falling apart. I already mentioned the murders, almost 80 a day. Unemployment figures is high. And this expropriation bill, they asked me about that as well. They said the investors do not want to come to a country where you put in a bill that you can expropriate with no compensation. What is the meaning of that? What did they do? So there's a lot of things that I think is for them uncertainty, and they interact with us as we used to do quite often with all these embassies. So that is the reality.
Who are we talking about here, Benny Van Zyl? Who did you meet from the United States?
I talked to the agricultural sector, the people of the agricultural sector that is situated in South Africa at the embassy.
I see. So representatives from the U.S. who are here at the embassy who work in the space of agriculture. When you say that you shared with them statistics on farm murders and farm attacks, which statistics specifically? The official statistics or your own statistics?
Oh, well, we agree upon the statistics at this stage. A lot of organizations, there was about a week ago some interaction with the police department, and there was some uncertainty about the definition. What do we mean? Is a farm attack. And then they agreed upon definition way back between the police, the government, and all our organizations that we still stick to that definition.
Yeah.
And I clarified that to them and said this is the definition that we all work upon. So if murder on a farm or a small holding is you can actually link it to that definition, then we say this is a farm attack. So that is clarified with the police as well, and so everyone agree upon that definition at this stage again.
So I'm wondering then,
questions.
Did you, for instance, tell them that in the third quarter of the last statistics that were released, there were 12 farm murders, and in those 12, one was a farm owner? Did you tell them?
No, that figure is what the Minister of Police mentioned,
and
because he
AfriForum
want to change the definition, and that is not at
and
this stage.
AfriForum submitted their statistics to the minister in March and asked it to be verified, which work the SAPS has been doing, and they came to the same conclusion as AfriForum, that there was just one murder of a farm owner. There were 5 farm dweller murders, 4 employee murders, 1 security, 1 not specified, and 1 farm owner. 12 in the third quarter.
Yeah, well, that is the reality. I think the Minister of Police opened up this whole discussion because he come with another definition, and after the discussions and the agree upon interaction between us and the police and other role players, we agree that the definition should stick the way it used to be, that we agree way back, and that is the principle. We do not break down figures for day to day. We just talk about the reality of uncertainty regarding the safety security situation in South Africa, and especially for us on farms as well. So we talk broadly conceptual about this whole process.
Yeah, so you and I can agree. Just lastly then, Benny van Zyl, what is the objective of the meeting? What do you want these representatives to do specifically?
Well, from our side, we talk about the AGOA agreement that we have concern, and actually it was now, by implication, it's uplifted, and that is for us a huge problem. So we talk about that and ask them if it's possible, if they can have some influence, but it is not the ambassador himself or a minister or advisor for the president himself. So we ask them that we want some positive economic interaction with all the role players in the world. But if our government position themselves with all the enemies of the ANC, of South Africa, of the United States, such as Hamas and Iran,
I've got to
then
go,
we have
Benny.
to realize something is not nice.
I've got to go. Thank you for that. That's Benny van Zyl, who is General Manager at the TLUSA. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, business and law enforcement partnership to fight crime, and IFP defends its support for the 2025 budget. Good morning. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has highlighted the importance of the partnership between business and law enforcement in the fight against crime. The partnership has been announced after President Cyril Ramaphosa called on the SAPS to form a strategic partnership with business. Speaking ahead of the 3-day National Policing Summit in Kempton Park in Johannesburg, Mchunu said the partnership would help to deal with business-related crimes.
But we're reaffirming our unwavering commitment to stand united in the fight against crime and corruption, committing to implementing measures that will indeed fight this. We need to tighten our porous borders, we need to radically reduce murder rates, and decisively deal with the proliferation of illegal firearms in our country.
The IFP has defended its decision to vote for the 2025 budget, which Parliament passed last week. It has highlighted the importance of the country's economic stability. IFP President Velinkosini Hlabisa has urged government to adopt an inclusive fiscal framework that is pro-growth. He briefed the media yesterday on the outcomes of the IFP's National Executive Committee meeting.
We recognize that the decision to increase VAT is not taken lightly, as it impacts all South Africans. However, given the dire state of public finances, revenue collection shortfalls, and the need to maintain critical social programs, we believe that this measure is a responsible step towards economic stability.
The Inyobeni inquest has been adjourned until Thursday in the East London Magistrates Court in the Eastern Cape. The court will continue to show video footage of what happened on the night on which 21 patrons died in June of 2022. Yesterday, Siyakangela Ndevu, owner and manager of the establishment, could be seen in the bar area selling alcohol to patrons. The video footage also depicts patrons covering their mouths and noses as well as coughing. Ntombizonke Mgangala, parent of one of the deceased, says she hopes the video footage will shed more light on what happened.
I think if some of the children who were there at Enyobeni could come and view, at least they would be able to know that this is what was happening. Because if you could look at it, now we think that this is what is happening there. But for someone who was there, will be able to say exactly which one of them did now. Because he told us, no, this is what was happening there.
Northwest Community Safety MEC Wessels Morueng has appealed to residents of Swaziland to allow police to properly investigate the alleged rape of a 7-year-old girl. Morueng visited the girl's family yesterday. The incident reportedly occurred in December last year. 2 suspects have been arrested. He has this message for the residents.
And I'm appealing to the community of Swaziland that they need to give the police an opportunity to do their work so that we come to a logical conclusion of this matter. I'm confident from where I'm seated that the case will stand prosecution and no bail will be given to these 2 individuals, so that we can send a strong message to other men out there that that thing will not happen, that you rape, you abuse a woman, and you just go with it. So we applaud on our community to remain calm, and they indicated to me that they are thankful to the government for what they've done.
And finally, China's vow to fight against U.S. tariffs as the world's 2 largest economies get close to an all-out trade war. Beijing has accused Washington of bullying. This after the U.S. President Donald Trump said he would impose an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports if Beijing did not rescind its taxes. The BBC's Anthony Zucher reports.
He believes that tariffs are the way to rebuild America's manufacturing core. I think he views this as something that he has to stick with, even through temporary pain, because this is his chance to change the trajectory of the United States when it comes to economic and trade policy. Despite the market turmoil, despite Republican leaders in Congress starting to criticize him, despite the executives on Wall Street starting to show dissatisfaction with the effects of these tariffs.
Recapping the top story, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has highlighted the importance of the partnership between business and law enforcement in the fight against crime. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Paying too much for car insurance? You could be, but you'll never know until you shop around. Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves an unbelievable 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Now that's what I call a real deal. Why pay more? Switch and save today. SMS out to 42876. That's out to 42876. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Enjoyed the crash on Main Reef Road at Press Avenue. Now, that's a really big junction this time of morning, and there's all sorts of delays around there. Crownwood Road coming north, Main Reef Road coming in from Amalgam, all very badly snarled up in that area. It doesn't take too much to go too wrong, and things get really hectic, and we've got that sort of situation this morning. Pretoria, traffic lights down, Solomon, Mashlunga and Garsfontein. You can imagine the mess that is that junction in Pretoria. Eastern roadworks on the R21, approaching the Benoni exit, causing backlogs on your way towards the airport. Durban, the N2 running south, a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction, so extra pressure as you come down from Mgena Road side in towards 4 level. M7 from Hunts Detman area, from North Dean, North Park side, up into St John's Avenue Bridge territory. That's slow, and still no traffic lights on M7 and South Coast Road. Also on your way to Pietermaritzburg, a breakdown before you get into the Ashburton exit, so from Linfield Park, that's all looking a bit slow. And Cape Town, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. It's a very busy Tuesday morning, back to school, plus wet weather conditions. The highways are fully loaded this morning, and that's not an understatement. Also, no traffic lights on Nooiensfontein at Stellenbosch Arterial Junction. That's quite heavily backed to all approaches. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
In sports this hour, Banyana back on the pitch this afternoon, taking on Malawi in their second international friendly, and it's also a farewell to legendary Mpumi Nyandeni. Nigeria's sporting ambitions on the rise. The country officially set to bid for the Commonwealth Games. And in Cricket South Africa has awarded 20 national contracts for the upcoming season, blending trusted names with emerging stars. More details at 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 11 minutes after 7. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the second hour. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. Coming up in this hour, I'll tell you about what the Deputy President of the Republic, Paul Mashatile, has had to say about DA members of cabinet. And in fact, yesterday he was speaking and he said if he were those DA members who serve in cabinet, he would be ashamed to be continuing and going on about with the duties of being ministers, despite having voted against the recently passed fiscal framework and revenue proposals. Mashatile laid into the former opposition party, asking what the basis of DA ministers continuing with the work in government, what that basis is when they did not support the government's budget. Mbazi Mashilowa, a renowned political commentator, former Gauteng Premier, will join me to unpack it all. We'll also be talking a bit about what seems to be growing pressure within the ANC itself that says there should be consequences for the posture that the DA and the FF Plus took in relation to the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. So Mbazi Mashilowa on standby to talk to me in the next few minutes. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs is all you are likely to hear for quite some time to come. Should you be concerned, though, by the impact of the raft of measures, of tariff measures that have been announced by the U.S. President Donald Trump against scores of countries, including our own? Yes, you should be. And we'll tell you why. Economist Azar Jamin will unpack how tariffs work, why they are deemed undesirable, as well as why their introduction and imposition in the current wave coming out from Washington represents something of a threat to the international trade and economic systems, as well as the ripple effects that it's likely to have on the global economy, but also on economies of those countries that are facing these hefty tariffs coming through from Washington. So Azar Jamin will talk to me just after my conversation with Mbazi Mashilowa. Through it all, give me a call. The number to dial 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
14 minutes after 7. Deputy President Paul Mashatile says DA members of cabinet should be ashamed to continue with their duties as ministers despite having voted against the recently passed fiscal framework and revenue proposals. Mashatile has laid into the former opposition party, asking what the basis of DA ministers continuing with the work is when they did not support the government's budget. He was speaking yesterday ahead of his party's top officials and National Working Committee, mulling over the working relationship with the DA in the National Coalition government. So let's speak to Mbazi Mashilowa, a renowned political commentator as well as former premier of the province of Gauteng. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So these comments by the Deputy President of the Republic, who's also Deputy President of the ANC, are just the latest that sort of reveal the levels of exasperation within the ANC with how the relationship is unfolding with the DA. We also heard the comments last week from President Ramaphosa addressing the ANC caucus. Do you believe that this exasperation is justified?
No, I don't think so. I think let's ask a slightly different question as one response. Do you think that the ANC would try to ram through a budget in any of the municipalities that they are in coalition with the EFF without the EFF being properly consulted? Or put differently, assuming that MKP and the EFF were in the government of national unity, do you think that the ANC will try to ram through without those parties acting the same way as the DA? I don't think they would. So it's not warranted. I think the real issue, even though the budget seems to be the hill that parties want to die on, is the fact that the GNU, when it was formed, it really never sat down thereafter to say, what is our agreement on economic policy, on the budget, on jobs, on growing the economy, employing people and all of those. And all of this now culminate with where we are. And that's why I really think if they want to work together, even if the ANC want to work with another party, those things will have to be sorted out, because without an agreed program of action in detail, you will always disagree on the budget. But the second point that I want to make quickly is this. There is a real difference from where the ANC comes from, and I think where the rest of the parties, not the smaller ones, if you were to bring in MKP, EFF, and the DA, they will all hold the same position. This is a power-sharing arrangement. We're not here to prop up the numbers. But the ANC thinks, no, you are here to ensure that we can go over the 50% plus one.
What do you say to the counter-argument that says, in a context where the other political parties that are part of the 10 that make up the coalition, when at least 8 of them are on board, it's unreasonable for the DA to expect that their view will prevail? I mean, we've been hearing from parties such as the IFP, Patriotic Alliance, and the likes, saying that we don't necessarily like this idea of raising VAT, but this is where we are, and we need to have a budget passed.
Well, I think it may well be correct to say that if this issue was discussed in the cabinet only, and the DA lost the argument there, that argument will hold to say that the cabinet have decided this is what we're going to do. The problem is that there have also been discussions by people not inside the cabinet, in the ANC and in the DA, and therefore the thing became political. In the same way that the ANC talking to the EFF, it became political, or to MKP, or to the other one. So I agree. If you have a discussion in the cabinet, that cabinet decision, once it's taken, is binding on everybody. But this discussion took place even outside at the political level.
So we saw a letter written by business leaders and sent to John Steenhuisen as well as President Cyril Ramaphosa, urging them to find a way to bridge their differences. What do you think is at play there? The levels of confidence, business confidence that the Government of National Unity enjoys, would that be eroded, as has been argued by some, were the DA to decide? Because ultimately, I believe it will be the decision of the DA, were the DA to decide to walk and leave the GNU?
I think that we will live another day, whether the ANC asks the DA to walk or the DA leaves out. The sun will rise again. There will be a government. And I don't think that the market, there may be a fast reaction onto that. For me, that is not the issue. Business have got every right to say, we are concerned about this GNU. You have taken us abroad to go and sell this GNU. We have done so, and now you're breaking it up. At that level, it's correct. But beyond that, they're just like all of us citizens who have views, which views may be taken on board or may be dismissed. For me, it is not what happens with the DA. It is whoever the ANC brings on board, they will have to change the way in which the budget is drafted. You need to discuss the broad principles, agree on those. Having agreed on them, look at both the expenditure side and the spending side, and then say, we are agreed to go. If you bring Action SA and they just there to add the numbers, the whole thing will be defeated. I know that the EFF will never want to just fill in the numbers. They will say it's a power sharing. We are here to share power, and they will be correct.
I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Mbazi Mashilowa, political commentator and former Gauteng Premier.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored! His first Premier League goal! Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience the thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yes, I've been saying tariffs is all you are likely to hear for quite some time to come. Should you be concerned by the impact of the raft of tariff measures announced by the U.S. President Donald Trump against scores of countries around the world, including our own? The answer is yes, you should be. Let's speak to economist Azar Jamin, who is the director and chief economist at Econometrics. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So let's start with that question. Should an ordinary South African be concerned? At some point I was saying we're losing track of which tariffs we're talking about. There was 25% on automotive exports into the U.S., then there was 30% on Liberation Day, and so on and so forth. Should we be concerned?
Yes, I think we should be concerned. Obviously, it depends who, different levels of income will be affected in different ways. But at the same time, I think one needs to get the impact of the tariffs into the correct perspective. When you talk about tariffs being imposed on South Africa, it's very interesting that more than half of our exports to the United States have been exempted from tariffs. Things such as platinum group metals, coal, iron ore, manganese, and that sort of thing, which are critically used by the U.S. Industry to manufacture goods. In the case of auto catalysts, they go into cars as anti-pollutants, and there's no other source for that for the United States other than from Russia. And so South Africa does export critical products there. Where we are affected, obviously, is in automobiles, in cars, and in certain agricultural products, most notably citrus to some extent, but in particular macadamia nuts, where 20% of our exports have been going to the United States. But as for, as a proportion of our total trade, that still amounts to a relatively small proportion. We're talking, so if you say more than half of our exports are exempt, and then the other is less than half, and in our total exports to the United States amount to 7.5% of our total exports. So you're really talking about 3 or 4% of our exports being affected. But if you're in the motor industry or the macadamia industry, you should be worried. The bigger concern for the man in the street in South Africa is that what is happening overseas is impacting not only South Africa, but virtually the whole world. And that could redound into a major global recession. And if that happens, then it hits everyone, including South Africa.
So there's been a great deal of emphasis on the rules-based international trade system being under threat at the moment. Put into context for us the history of tariffs and why Donald Trump would see them as advantageous when the world has worked so hard over the decades to try and remove them as trade barriers.
Yes, tariffs were instituted in a big way in the early 1930s, and many attribute the Great Depression to be attributable to them. But in the 19th century, that was when countries thought that the only way they could protect their countries' economies was to impose big tariffs on imports from other countries. And so unless you had an absolutely outstandingly competitive product that was absolutely critical to the country that was imposing the tariffs, you wouldn't be able to sell it in those countries. But gradually over time, and especially since the 1960s, it's been recognized that actually this is counterproductive, and that if countries progressively reduce their tariffs, then everyone will trade much more with everyone else, and countries will be able to consume the cheapest product, no matter whether it's locally produced or internationally produced, and the consumer will therefore benefit, and you'll get higher growth most generally. And that is the era of globalization that we've seen in the last half century. But during that period, what we saw was the rise of China in particular, but many other East Asian economies such as Vietnam and Bangladesh, who've been producing goods at a far cheaper rate than in America. And Americans have been consuming these goods with great alacrity because they've been so cheap. And that has led to America running large trade deficits with these countries. And Trump believes that he can resurrect American industry by making the goods from those countries much more expensive.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. That's Dr. Azar Jamin, who is Director and Chief Economist at Econometrics.
This is SAFM Sports with Dumi Nkgapele.
Dumi, good morning to you once again. So Banyana have WAFCON qualifier in their sights, and ahead of that, they are preparing for it with a game with Malawi, yeah?
Yeah, so Banyana are playing in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, and they're just preparing themselves with international friendlies against Malawi. And Banyana coach Desiree says that there's still a lot of work to be done for her side to be ready for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Banyana thrashed Malawi 3-0 in the first international friendly on Saturday, and they face them again today at the Lucas Masterpieces Moripe Stadium. And Ella says that she's using these matches to build depth in the team.
I think it's important that we create depth because people always say, what happens if Jermaine's not there? What happens if Hilda's not there? What happens if Bambanani's not there? So we're trying to create that depth because it's really, really important. I think we're looking at that as well. And it showed today, a lot of the players stepped up. Pana came back after a very, very long time. And, we saw her play at the CAF Champions League last year for TP Mazembe. TP Mazembe winning the CAF Women's Champions League. And I thought she also really stepped up.
Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns defender Grant Kekana says that they are set for everything Esperance will throw at them in the CAF Champions League return leg tonight. Esperance are expected to go all out to overturn their 1-0 deficit that they suffered in Tshwane last week when they meet in Tunisia. In other fixtures tonight, Al Hilal faces Al Ahly and AS FAR versus Pyramids. Elsewhere, Mikel Arteta says that facing Real Madrid is one of the biggest games of his managerial career so far. Arsenal welcome Real Madrid to the Emirates for the first leg of the Champions League quarterfinal. In the other clash tonight, Bundesliga leaders Bayern Munich and Serie A champions Inter Milan square off for a place in this year's semi-finals. Then in Commonwealth Games, the Nigerian Olympic Committee has expressed an interest to bid for the 2030 Commonwealth Games. Nigeria can only commence a formal bid with the backing of the country's government. Now, Nigeria last hosted a major multi-sport event, which was the African Games back in 2003 in Abuja. In cricket, South Africa has awarded 18 national contracts, 2 hybrid contracts, which will run from the 1st of June 2025 to the 31st of May 2026. And the list includes the likes of Themba Bavuma, Marco Jansen, Keshav Maharaj, Aiden Markram, Lungingidi, and Kagiso Rabada, amongst others, who are set for another exciting year. Vian Mulder, David Bedingham, and Carl Verreyn have all earned contract upgrades during the current season and have been retained for the upcoming season. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Good morning. In the headlines, the rising crime levels in the country will be the focus of the policing summit, which will start at the Emperor's Palace Convention Centre in Ekurhuleni today. President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the keynote address at the 3-day summit. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has highlighted the importance of the partnership between business and law enforcement in the fight against crime. And the Iranian Foreign Ministry has confirmed Tehran and the US will hold high-level talks in Amman on Saturday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Go to Pretoria East and no traffic lights today. Solomon Mashlangu and Garsfontein. There's quite often traffic light problems in that area. This morning it's the big one, so there are delays all over that junction. R21 towards the airport, backlogging between the Bopsfontein exit and the roadworks down by the R23 Benoni off-ramp. And we did tell you about some queues coming in from Protea Glen on the N12 earlier this morning up towards Golden Highway. That's all being cleared up. The Crown area is a real big mess. There's a crash on Main Reef Road at Press Avenue, so M2 going through from Crown into Crown area. That's heavy. Main Reef in from Industrial Amalgam is bad, and Crownwood Road coming up from the Crown North area, that's pretty heavily backed as well. A lot of traffic. It doesn't take too much to really disrupt things this morning in that area. You've got that crash. Durban side of things, the N2 is just having a look at the run off the south coast. A little bit slow, Tweeny Hill area, nothing too desperate. It gets heavier as you get to the M7 Bluff exit and sit all the way through to Westwood Mall, through the roadworks. The M7 into Pinetown, quite heavy this morning from Hans Detman, moving up through towards the St John's Avenue Bridge area. Breakdown at Ashburton, N3, Pietermaritzburg bound, queuing, and a crash just around Peter Brown, Town Hill area on your way into Pietermaritzburg from Hilton might just be slowing things up as well. Cape Town, generally busier this morning as we go back to school with wet weather conditions. Stellenbosch is seeing some heavy traffic, particularly the R44 as you arrive in from the Somerset West area. Also the N7 queuing heavily this morning again from 4 Trekker Road, Goodwood territory up to Bosmansdam Road. That has been absent largely during the school holidays. And just staying with the N7, there's big problems going south with roadworks at Goodwood. They are still there. And the M7 out of Mitchell's playing heavy to Samora Michelle through yet more roadworks and construction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's touch base with Ndauleng Lechela for the second update of the morning. Ndauleng, tell me about Apple's value tanking amid this U.S.-China trade concerns.
That's right, Thulas. Now, last week, going into this week has really been turmoil for markets, and we've seen companies like Apple being hard hit on the back of those tariffs that are coming through. The counter has wiped out about $638 billion in market value in just 3 days. Now, the tech giant is particularly vulnerable to the trade war due to its reliance or presence in China, where 90% of iPhones are assembled and face 54% tariffs. Now, the company may need to absorb additional costs or raise prices to offset the expenses. Alternatively, Apple could rearrange its supply chain to import goods from countries with lower tariffs, such as India or Vietnam. But even those countries are not entirely exempt from the tariffs, as Trump's sweeping plan has increased tariffs on a broad range of nations. Now, analysts are weighing in on the potential consequences for Apple. UBS analysts estimate that the highest end iPhone could see a price increase of around 30%. Barclays analyst Tim Long expects Apple to raise prices or face a potential 15% cut to earnings. Meanwhile, analysts from Wedbush Securities have slashed price targets for Apple, citing the company's significant exposure to China.
As if Apple products were cheap to start off with, right?
Hey!
As if they were not expensive to start off with.
We'll see how loyal customers are when these prices go up.
Customers like someone I know. Tell me about Mercedes-Benz and their recall. This recall, what's that about? It's on certain GLE models, yeah?
That's right, Thulas. And the National Consumer Commission announcing a recall on certain Mercedes-Benz GLE models from 2022 onwards. This move comes after identifying a safety issue with the high voltage starter generator in these vehicles. Now, the problem occurs when the generator's processor experiences a sporadic overload, causing the system's monitoring function to incorrectly detect a faulty component. As a result, the generator's functions may be deactivated, leading to an unexpected loss or propulsion power without warning. The sudden loss of power increases the risk of an accident. Now, a total of 54 affected vehicles have been identified in South Africa, and it's possible that some of these cars may have been exported to neighboring countries such as Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, and Eswatini. Now, the Commission advises owners to take their vehicles to an authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for a free repair to replace the faulty component.
All right, lastly, Dowling, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So sentiment seems to be recovering this morning with the global sell-off easing, Asian stocks not being left behind, rebounding and trading in the green. The Japanese Nikkei leading the gains, up 5.6% this hour. The mood is positive in the US as well, futures trending higher despite the tit-for-tat approach between the US and China. Trump's administration, in the meantime, confirmed that almost 70 countries have contacted them to begin negotiations on tariffs. And then coming back home, markets closing mostly in the green, with the all share up 0.75% in yesterday's session. The rand, however, lagging, being left behind. It is trading on the back foot, weaker at 19.50 to the dollar this hour.
Always right on the money. That's on Dowling Lechela. Look out for one more update from Dowling, and that will be coming up just after 8:30, in which update she will then give you a sense of what to expect for the trading day in the markets.
WAFCON preparations continue as African champions Banyana meet again with the Scorchers in a thrilling pitch battle. This is the International Friendly. Experience the beauty of African women's football. South Africa versus Malawi. This Tuesday, 8 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus, SABC2, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with a call from Maxwell in Polokwane. Good morning to you, Maxwell. You want to talk to me about the budget framework?
Yes, good morning, Tula.
Yes.
I think I was listening to Bazima's analysis. But there are a couple of things that you know as a matter of fact. One is that the ANC was actually open to practical engagement. However, it brought other relevant issues to the table. This is not substantiated by the ANC. But
Maxwell, I'm sorry to do this. Your line is not so great. Could I ask that the team just try and get you on a better line, because we're battling to hear what you have to what you have to say, and we do want to get the full benefit of the conversation with you. We'll come back to Maxwell a bit later on. Let me go to Jacques in KwaZulu-Natal. Jacques, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about what the Deputy President has had to say about the DA?
Yes, correct. Good morning to you and your team. Okay, the first thing is that I wanted to make mention is that everybody doesn't have to have an agreement on an opinion. And your previous speaker that spoke about it, I agree with him quite on a few facts. But there's a fact that we need to know. The ANC normally creates its own enemies. So it has created the MK, it has created the IFP, as well as the EFF. So in that stance or that category, it is that they don't seem to agree with other people's opinions, whether within the party or without the thing with the other party. And the other thing is that our Deputy President has his opinions about the DA not joining them, and I don't have an opinion on that. And like I said, he says no, that he doesn't know how they come to work and face the rest of their teams. But there's the thing. His own security team basically assaulted people in front of witnesses. And he has never taken a stance from the time that issue has happened till current. So I don't think that a man with a reputation would like that, or a person that has virtues, should be commenting on other people's staff or other people's political members when he himself can't even control his own staff and his own house.
That's a bit of a headline, is it not, Jacques? In the sense sense that, hear me out. In the sense that, does it then invalidate everything else that he has to say? My recollection is that there was an apology that came from his office, and at the time, I think the explanation was that he was not even in one of those vehicles, but I can't remember the exact details, but I do recall that there was an apology. Are we saying that he cannot speak on any matter with any authority because of that incident?
No, Thulasizwe, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying a virtuous man would be able to stand on both sides of the fence. So he doesn't have an agreement with Mr. Steenhuis. But the other ministers that work for the DA or that are within the DA party, we do not know whether they did agree with Mr. Steenhuis or not. So I'm saying to you that he's commenting on whether people should come to work or not. But if the members of the DA party or their caucus are coming to work, whether they agreed with Mr. Steenhuis' outcome or whoever they made the outcome, I'm saying today they at least show some virtue of still working, even though they may not agree with their party, whereas someone needs to do the same thing.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. That's Jacques in KwaZulu-Natal. Let me go to Lucky in Orlando East, also on the same topic of the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile. Good morning to you, Lucky.
Hi, Thulasizwe and listeners and your team. I don't think Paul Mashatile should be in a position to say what he said. Looking at what the mess the ANC has put us in, they should be ashamed of remaining in government. They've run down ESCOM, Transnet, and everything else they've touched. It's a mess. Education system, it's a mess. Crime is high. And now they are the one who should be with the tail behind their legs and resign and let other people who are capable to run the government do that.
Gotcha.
So he just needs to look at the mirror before he starts talking.
Okay, gotcha. Lucky, straight to the point that the ANC should be the ones who are ashamed to be waking up and going to work. Let me speak to Mpho in Sekhukhune. Good morning to you, Mpho. Also on the conversation we had earlier on with former Premier and now political commentator Mbazima Shilowa.
Yeah, thank you very much. We obviously don't agree with what I think is the last speaker who says
you don't agree.
Messed up. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the last speaker. But let me go to the issue about what the former Premier has said. I think at first we must ask the question of what is the budget process? If the real issue which the DA is differing with is about the budget, then let's start where the budget starts. The budget starts with the MTBPS. that has been presented to Parliament last year around October.
Yes.
And the DA has voted in favor of that MTBPS. Second to that is that departments and entities are expected to submit to National Treasury on how they forecast or they plan their financial projections and spending for the financial year that is going to kickstart around April, May. I suspect that the ministers of the DA would have done so through their department. They would have sent whatever they want, how they want to shape the department and focus and so on, their priorities. They would have done so.
Yeah.
Then thirdly, the issue here is the debate on the budget does not happen on a given day. It's a process, hence I'm arguing on the process issue. So what the Minister of Finance and the Budget Committee on Finance were trying to do was about to answer the question that we have a deficit. How do we resolve this deficit? If the main issue is about the VAT, why is it that the DA in their argument, in their bargaining, they are bringing other issues? They would have, if they were about VAT, they would have stuck to the VAT issue and say, we don't agree with the increase of the VAT. But my last point is that we should not think that the increase of VAT is for increasing money to some guy who's rich somewhere for us to give him money. It's for us to finance the services we want. How do you increase the all-person grant? You increase that because you have a revenue. How do you create that revenue?
You've got to fund it somehow.
You have to fund it. So the debate, we must accept that the debate by the DA, it's not about the budget. It's about things they want for themselves. Because we have a sense of what they say. Bella bill, this and that and the other. It's not about the budget.
Mpo, thank you for that. That's Mpoinsi Kukune there, outlining the various processes that are at play and in building up to where we are with the debate at the moment. Let me take a call from Mike in Newlands. Mike, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the same issue, the budget and the DA's views on it?
Yes, this is where I do. Thanks so much for a great show. I just thought it amusing that we have the Vice President of our country calling it a disgrace that the DA did not support the budget because they're in the GNU. You know, let's just stop and think for a second. What country has a government that supports taxing people more? When you think about it, we have so lost our way when it's a disgrace to not charge people more money. So I think that's the first thing you want to think about. And then the other thing I think about calling about Paul Mashatile saying it's a disgrace. I think what the bigger disgrace is, I remember on the January 8th statement, he promised a lady in Khayelitsha that he would support their soup kitchen with bags of rice. That was nearly 4 months ago. To this day, and I've checked with the DA because the DA was supporting the soup kitchen along with SPA and I forget the other company. To this day, Paul Mashatile, who stood on national TV in front of this little lady, very sweet, promised to support the soup kitchen. To this day, not a bag of rice has been delivered. Now, that is what I call a disgrace.
Sure.
Thanks, Thulasizwe.
Thank you for that. That's Mike in Newlands there. Of course, that issue about the soup kitchen is something that I'm not able to immediately verify. It would be interesting, though, for anyone who works with the deputy president, especially in the ANC, to then come back and say, in light of that undertaking made in January this year, if indeed such an undertaking was made, I don't immediately recall it, but if it was, it would be nice for someone to just come through and say, we made this promise, here's how far we've gone. Mike saying nothing has happened by way of keeping to that undertaking. Trevor in Limpopo, good morning. You want to talk about the tax collector, the revenue service?
Yes, good morning to you, Thulasizwe. Look, we are aware that SARS has collected around in the region of 1.8 trillion for the 2024-2025. But I think we need to also check how much of that revenue is attributed to the two-part system, Thulasizwe. The concern here is that your retirement is meant for retirement.
Yes.
And if we have no control of how much we as workers are able to access into our retirement, because of the most of the time they're not. But how much will that impact on?
Oh, Trevor, we seem to be losing your line there. But those figures that you're talking about, Trevor, we completely
when
lost.
you're supposed to retire and there isn't enough money.
Yeah. No, we lost Trevor there. But Trevor, the point you are making about how much of a contribution the two-pot system made, those figures are out there. The SARS Commissioner, Edward Kisweta, did outline that it was part of the big contributors. Well, yeah, one of the contributors to the revenue that they were able to collect. And the concerns that you are raising about people using that money before they reach retirement age is part of that debate that's been happening since this system of two-pot withdrawal was first mooted. So thank you for making that point this morning.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Got to say, for a back-to-school Tuesday, traffic around Gauteng looks fairly normal. Looks like what you've been sitting through the last week or so is sort of replicated again this morning. Just a couple of standouts. The lights are out Carsfontein and Solomon Mashlangu in Pretoria East, so that's very heavy. There's also a crash on Linwood Road near Rabida Street. So if you're coming in from the east, Linwood Road towards sort of Jenner and Masiela is quite heavily backed up. Roadworks on the R21 south at the Benoni exit still causing delays, and a crash in the heart of Crown on Main Reef and Press, really backlogging traffic right through that Crown area this morning. If you're on your way up to Pietermaritzburg, a stationary truck before Ashburton. When we last checked in, that was causing a delay to Linfield Park, and it still is. That truck is still there. Crash N2 North before Gateway in the roadworks, heavy from Komashu. Exit as you line up towards that one, and a broken down vehicle on the N2 North around Spaghetti Junction, causing some problems from the M7. So two big queues of traffic to work through between the M7 Bluff exit and the Gateway exit this morning. Cape Town, everything on a go slow on account of wet weather conditions. It is noticeably busier around Cape Town. N7 jammed both ways towards Bosmansdam Road. No traffic lights. Stellenbosch Arterial at Noinsfontein Road. So that is quite heavy. And if you're coming out of Mitchell's Play in the queue on the M7, lingering longer than it normally does, backlogging Highlands Drive up through Samora Michelle into the roadworks. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Paying too much for car insurance? You could be, but you'll never know until you shop around. Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves an unbelievable 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Now that's what I call a real deal. Why pay more? Switch and save today. SMS OUT to 42876. That's OUT to 42876. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
8 minutes to 8. Residents of Denaysville, located along the Vaal River in the Free State, are taking precautionary measures and removing essential items from their homes following an evacuation order. This comes after the Department of Water and Sanitation opened a fifth sluice gate at the Vaal Dam, pushing after it surpassed its capacity, raising the risk of flooding. Let's speak now to Wisani Mabasa, who is spokesperson of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Good morning, and thank you for your time. So the decision to open the fifth sluice gate, you took that decision on Sunday. What necessitated this measure being taken, particularly in the context of, you had opened the fourth one barely 24 hours prior?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and thank you for having me. Yes, indeed, the decision was very necessary in 24-hour space because of the incoming inflows from the upper catchment within the Val Dam. So it was necessary for the department to take that particular decision in order to ensure that we safeguard the structural integrity of the dam, because the dam has a additional capacity of storage temporarily albeit of between 100 and 126, which we are supposed to manage through controlled releases. As such, the previous releases that we started on the 20th of March from the first sluice gate, 24, 1st, 5th, and then now the 6th one that we took on Sunday, was to ensure that we remain within the parameters of that additional storage capacity, so that we do not have a situation where the dam gets more under pressure and end up collapsing, because this would be catastrophic. But also, we have continuously been providing these updates to all the relevant stakeholders and communities downstream to prepare ahead of all this, as they are aware half the time that when the dams start picking up, what it means is that there will be time where more water will be coming up and will be overtopping the riverbanks, and those that are on the floodline may be affected by these levels of water.
So what do the dam levels stand at the moment? The Val as well as the Bloemhof, I think, are the main ones that we are talking about at the moment. And how does that stack up against what the ideal position should be?
Currently, the Val Dam is sitting at 112.8%, and the Bloemhof Dam is sitting at 115. And with the Bloemhof Dam, the difference is that its attenuation position is up to 16%, different from the one of our dam, which is able to contain up to extra 26%. This one is 15. So as such, with the Bloemhof, we've been increasing more releases downstream from the Bloemhof Dam to, by 7 o'clock last night, to 2,000 cubic meters per second. So meaning that all the stakeholders downstream, the farmers, the communities that are within the floodline may be affected by all these releases up to the Douglas in the Northern Cape. So as such, we have been communicating in a coordinated manner with the National Disaster Management Centers, together with the district and local municipalities, to ensure that all these communities are moved to safer, higher grounds.
What do you say to those who say there wasn't sufficient warning for communities to start preparing for this possibility and just mitigating the possibility of flooding?
Thulasizwe, we'll always have such kind of statements, because when we are experiencing rainfall, because it's rain, we have no control over it, and we are managing the infrastructure according to what we are receiving, the runoffs within the dam. As such, it is the reason that when the dam started picking up around 80%, we have been continuously communicating. And even when we started opening with the valves, rather, initially, before the first sluice gate was open, we have been communicating when we increased the releases of the valves. As such, when those start picking up, all those that are downstream needs to start preparing themselves, because it can never be a 24-hour period. We do these recommendations to say that those that can start seeing, because this impact is affecting those downstream differently based on where they are within the floodlines. They need to start preparing accordingly. We have this as far back as early March, continuously so on daily basis, at times as regular as possible in all these platforms, to ensure that all those stakeholders are aware and they needed to prepare timelessly. However, there are those that wait for water to go up to their knees to be definitely sure that indeed there is this heavy rain. And you can recall that there are other, what do we call this, tributaries along the Vaal River also that are also contributing besides the water that is coming from the dam. So you can imagine that combined with that, the levels might rise up much higher than what we would have anticipated with only water coming from the Vaal Dam.
The other concern, when people watch, as spectacular as it is, when the sluice gates are opened and the attendant concerns about flooding and the likes, a lot of people then ask themselves that, is this the most efficient way to deal with this situation in a water-scarce country as we speak? Many parts of Gauteng battling with water availability. Is this the most efficient?
Yes, in Gauteng, the Vaal Dam is the lifeline of the province together with parts of Mpumalanga, Free State, as well as Northwest. And this dam is one of 14 many other dams that are in the integrated Vaal River system that provide water in Gauteng. The challenges of Gauteng are not necessarily as a result of water security, meaning that the availability of the resource, but rather the issues of operations, the issues of provision on the ground from where the water gets treated to reach my home and your home, and that is what needs to be addressed. Rather, at this moment in time, we are in no position to say that we've got challenges of water security, but we have challenges of water provision and reliability.
Wisani, let me take advantage of the fact that I have you on the line, and if you're not in a position to answer this question, feel free to say so. One of the other challenges you face as far as your dams are concerned is the issue of vegetation, alien vegetation, hyacinth and the likes. It manifests in particular around Hartbeespoort, Harties Dam and other dams as well. How far are you with trying to find a fix for those issues?
Yes, indeed, and this is as a result of most dysfunctional or poor functioning wastewater systems that are managed by water services authorities, and we are addressing that through our regulatory mechanisms. But at the same time, we have in Hartbeespoort Dam a remediation program that is being implemented by Magali's Water to ensure that they rehabilitate the dam, but also the catchment, the crocodile catchment that is bringing this pollution into the dam through various tributaries, including your Appies as well as the crocodile in itself into the dam. The Deputy Minister was there very recently, where we are working with Rhodes University to release these bugs that are supposed to be destroying the plants in the Hartbeespoort Dam, and we are expecting to see the difference sometime towards the end of the year. But during winter season, that's where we can see the dam getting much more clearer because they don't get to flourish that much. But in the Vaal catchment, we had the situation of the lettuce as well sometime last year, and the rainwater has been responsible in ensuring that gets also cleared, but that is over and above dealing with it through our regulatory mechanisms of all those that are responsible of polluting. Thank you
for that, Wisani. I appreciate you also indulging that particular question. That is Wisani Mavasa, who is spokesperson for the Department of Water and Sanitation, and Musa on standby with your latest news.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa to address the police summit and Tehran and the US to hold high-level talks. Good morning. Rising crime levels in the country will be the focus of the inaugural police summit, which will start at Empress Palace Convention Centre in Ekurhuleni today. President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the keynote address at the three-day summit, themed Efficiency in Action, Optimizing South Africa's Policing Potential. The summit will look at enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the SAPS in fighting crime. The South African Policing Union spokesperson, Lisiba Tobagale, outlines the issues they hope the President will address.
If you still have an under-resourced service like SAPS in this regard, starting from the human capital, going down to physical resources, then it really becomes difficult to really win against crime. If one compares the capacity of SAPS just before 2010, we were just above 190,000. But when you look now, the population has since grown, but the numbers they have since went down. So the hope that this summit will also touch on that. And we still continue to see the numbers of police killings. We need to have a solution for police killings because we need to make sure that we protect our protectors.
Meanwhile, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has highlighted the importance of the partnership between business and law enforcement in the fight against crime. The partnership has been announced after President Ramaphosa called on the SAPS to form a strategic partnership with business. Speaking ahead of the three-day National Policing Summit in Kempton Park, Mchunu said the partnership would help to deal with business-related crimes.
But we're reaffirming our unwavering commitment to stand united in the fight against crime and corruption, committing to implementing measures that will indeed fight this. We need to tighten our porous borders. We need to radically reduce murder rates and decisively deal with the proliferation of illegal firearms in our country.
Northwest Community Safety MEC Wessels Morueng has appealed to residents of Swaziland to allow police to properly investigate the alleged rape of a 7-year-old girl. Morueng visited the girl's family yesterday. The incident reportedly occurred in December last year. 2 suspects have been arrested. He has this message for the residents.
And I'm appealing to the community of Swaziland that they need to give the police an opportunity to do their work so that we come to a logical conclusion of this matter. I'm confident from where I'm seated that the case will stand prosecution and no bail will be given to these 2 individuals so that we can send a strong message to other men out there that that thing will not happen, that you rape, you abuse a woman and you just go with it. So we applaud on our community to remain calm, and they indicated to me that they are thankful to the government for what they've done.
Police in Delft on the Cape Flats are seeking the assistance of the public in tracing 3 suspects. They say the armed suspects attacked a 46-year-old man and an 18-year-old girl at their home in Delft last month. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says one of the suspects, a foreign national, raped the girl multiple times before they fled the scene with valuables. And finally, the Iranian Foreign Ministry has confirmed that Iran and the U.S. will hold high-level talks in Amman on Saturday. U.S. President Donald Trump had earlier surprised an audience at the White House when he announced the 2 adversaries had been holding direct talks. This is something Iran has consistently denied. Trump said if negotiations on Tehran's nuclear program failed, Iran would be in great danger. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen has the details.
Western diplomats from European countries say if you make a deal, you have to give them something. And the kind of deal they've been talking about is basically an adapted version of the deal that was done in the time of President Obama, which was the one that Trump pushed very hard by Netanyahu pulled out of. So I am not confident that they can find common ground.
Recapping the top story, rising crime levels in the country will be the focus of the police summit, which will start at Emperor's Palace Convention Centre in Ekurhuleni today. President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver the keynote address at the 3-day summit. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heavy backlogs getting into Mbombela this morning. If you're coming from Rocky Drift area, White River, there's a very nasty crash, Drum Rock area, if you know where that is, before you get into sort of Mbombela. So just give yourself plenty of time. There's a very heavy queue, White River, going south along that R40, and it probably will take some time to clear that scene. I understand there are fatalities, possibly multiple fatalities. N4 at Emilifeni has been reopened. The traffic is moving again through there. Joburg Crown area, very heavy crash on Main Reef Road at Press Avenue, snarling that whole sort of central Crown area up, also impacting on the M2 going through Crown interchange towards Main Reef, and Main Reef coming in from the industrial side, very heavy. A lot of traffic on Durban's M2 this morning, M7 through to Spaghetti Junction, Umgeta Road through to Queen Nandi, and Kumashu up to a crash at Gateway. 3 big queues to work through on your way up towards the airport side this morning. And Cape Town roadworks on the N7 south at Goodwood are still there. The extra volume this morning means heavy backlogs. No lights on Mike Pina at Tiddy Mayas. There's a lot of congestion there. If you're turning off the N1 at Yiptayaga, picking up Mike Pina going south past the hospital, expect heavy queues. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
In sports this hour, Thembikosi Lodge already making waves in Morocco. He has picked up an individual award at Wydad Casablanca. In the IPL, Mumbai Indians held their nerve to beat Royal Challengers Bangalore, and Tiger Woods teams up with Augusta National on a new golf course design and a school development project aimed at growing the game from the ground up. More details at 8:30.
This April, you may regret taking a chance with that milk that smelled a little dodgy. Fortunately, with Outsurance Essential car insurance, you'll have no regrets, covering your older car at a low price. you could get up to 1 million rand third-party cover if you accidentally damage someone's car. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. SMS CAR to 43517. That's CAR to 43517. Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning. We are into the third hour of the Morning Brief on this Tuesday. It's great to be in your company. We've covered quite some ground over the last 2 hours. In particular, we've been talking about the issue of tariffs because that seems to be the buzzword of the moment. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. And unfortunately, we don't have the option of saying we are tired of talking about Donald Trump and his tariffs. That's simply because the implications are not just, confined to South Africa and the United States. They are global, with the sense that among many economists that we are on the verge of an all-out trade war between the United States and many countries around the world. Some countries, of course, are seeking to follow the path of negotiating a dispensation with Washington. But at this point, because the two main countries that are involved, China and the United States, at this point it's tit for tat in as far as these tariffs go, the sense that this could severely affect the global economy really brings us into that conversation, and we have the stakes are high for all of us, including those of us here on the southern tip of the African continent. So do weigh in on that conversation, but also the conversation around the government of national unity, the national coalition government, that also at a point of decision as far as the DA's participation goes. The DA itself is going to review and come out with a decision on what the implications are of the recent outcome of voting for the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. Those and other issues, if they are on your mind this morning, you can call me and you and I can talk about it. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes. Please send them to 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, so a lot of your voice notes coming through. So let me try and just wade through as many of them as possible without necessarily interacting with each one of them.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It feels so sad to hear comments like if the DA had to leave the GNU, the markets will react, meaning that all along the DA has been manipulating our economy. If they don't get what they want in the government, they always make economical threats. Grandma by Project.
Hey, Thulas, this thing of land and white Afrikaners is irritating because the very same people are able to lease land in Mozambique and the land belongs to the state. They don't complain. Even investors, they go to Mozambique and invest in the land and trade and do whatever that needs to be done, but the land belongs to the state. So this thing is just a lie, actually. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Good morning, Thulasizwe Muzi here in Tabazimbi. So basically, this guy is telling us that he just perpetuated the lie. So that meeting, they just continued with the lie, they just continued with the misinformation, they continued with the propaganda. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And that this guy that you're referring to is Benny Van Zyl of TLUSA, where I was asking him about what it is that they talked about in that meeting with representatives from the United States that represent the Department of Agriculture in the U.S. and what it is that they presented as far as farm murders are concerned. So just for context, for anyone who would have missed what that is in reference to. Arthur in Pongolo, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about development and the government of this republic?
Yes, good morning to the and SAFM listeners. You see, there's one thing that I agree with. One of the best things I agree what Donald Trump did.
Mm-hmm.
Did to put a sanction to all politicians of South Africa. Reason being, how are we gonna want to go to other countries while your country you are failing to develop your country? For example, you know, last week you were talking with the MEC of Cocta in KwaZulu-Natal, They talk about the money that they're going to receive from Cocta National.
Yes.
Yet, they did not talk to you with the engineers. Engineers have already just said they're going to utilize it in terms of infrastructure development like this. Look, we have, in South Africa, I don't think we have got engineers who are just quicker to maintain the situation of climate change, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. We need people engineers, if KZN, for example, can collaborate with China. If you look at China, how they develop their road infrastructure, they have a tendency of making a bridge in 48 days. In KwaZulu-Natal, you can just, or in South Africa, you can build a bridge that can take China 22 days. In South Africa, you can have 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, you have politicians who just quick to say they want money. How could you release money not knowing how you're going to utilize that money?
Right.
Secondly,
Arthur, I hear you, Arthur, but go back to that point about sanctioning politicians in this country. You're saying you support that Donald Trump should sanction South African politicians?
Yes, because why they want to go to Europe with South African taxpayers' money if they cannot develop even just a single route to your home.
I've got to move on, Arthur, but let me suggest to you, isn't part of encouraging investment by countries such as the United States and therefore going and actively seeking out engagement part of that development that you're talking about? When those countries and their companies invest here, economy grows, you are able to then develop this country.
The statement I'm supporting with Thulas is if Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso can just do it without going to visit even South Africa, can just look at President Traore.
Yeah. So that's why they should be looking for an example. Thank you for that. That's Arthur in Pongolo there. I've got to move on, Arthur. Let me go to Mandla in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Mandla. You want to talk about the interview we had earlier on with Benny Van Zyl of the TLUSA?
Yes, before I go there, let me touch this thing of Paul Masatile.
Yes.
Saying that the minister should be ashamed. He should be ashamed himself. When they took over this country from the National Party, unemployment was sitting at 15%. And there were economic sanctions that gave the National Party. Imagine if there were no economic sanctions. Unemployment would be at around 6%.
But there was unemployment measured within which segment of the population, Mandla? Because remember, it was segmented and fragmented, and there were portions of the population that were deliberately left out of the economy. Deliberately.
Thulasizwe, you must stop being the spokesperson of these tax, ANC tax.
I could never be.
Unemployment now.
I could never be, Mandla. I'm engaging you. I could never be the spokesperson of these people.
You don't engage these ANC tax.
Mandla,
you don't engage them.
Mandla.
Yes.
Unless you want to speak and then I don't engage you, none of us benefits when that happens. It's stress testing your idea. Some of the things I say and put to you are not things I even believe myself, but it's to get the engagement going, Mandla. So please calm down and then come back and make your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
These ANC tax, unemployment now is sitting at 44%. They should be ashamed. Crime is out of proportion. 24,000 murders a year. It's like we are in a war zone.
Yeah.
They worry about Palestinian killings.
Okay.
So these ANC thugs, they must be ashamed of themselves.
Okay.
They have the DA to help them grow the economy and create jobs. On that thing of that farmer,
yes.
You know, Thulasizwe, I am disappointed of you. Why do you want to question this guy on the statistics? You know, crime starts small. This murder in South Africa didn't start just like that. It started small, and government didn't care about it. The issue of the foreign nationals, it started small, and we warned the government. And you, Thulasizwe, and these thugs of the ANC were telling us about xenophobia and all these things. Now in Delft, a foreign national has raped a girl in front of his father, and they robbed that house. We want this ANC thugs, and you were with them, Thulasizwe.
Can I ask you something, Manja?
You know?
Do facts matter?
Come again?
Do facts matter? Facts, when you and I are debating, do they matter? And would you agree that if someone is meeting an authority and presenting statistics represent facts, right?
Yes.
So whatever position the other person that you are engaging with, let's say in this case, the American representative, whatever positions they're going to take, or whatever position you want them to take, would you agree with me that that position should be informed by the facts as they stand?
Yes, Thulasizwe, but the same goes. You don't ask these ANC thugs who protects the farmers. Who is protecting the farmers? No one is protecting the farmers. They are on their own. Why?
Can I just tell you?
You don't ask these ANC thugs that question.
Can I just tell you then, Mandla, as a parting shot? I'm 100% with you about the failures, the extent to which we've been failed by the failure to be serious about fighting crime, the lawlessness in this country, and I've made that expression quite a number of times. Maybe you missed it. I've gotten to a point where I said I have nothing further to add about how the state is failing its citizens who are getting killed daily across the country, including in farming communities. What I will challenge, though, is when someone says and purports to be presenting statistics, that person must be prepared to be challenged against the actual statistics as they stand in the country. And I think that's as far as I can take it. And thank you for that, Mandla. I've engaged you this morning, and I think I can move on at this point. Thank you.
WAFCON preparations continue as African champions Banyana Banyana meet again with the Scorchers in a thrilling pitch battle. This is the international friendly. Experience the beauty of African women's football. South Africa versus Malawi. This Tuesday, 8 April at 2:30 p.m. Live streaming on SABC Plus, SABC2, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
22 minutes after 8, a recent survey conducted by the Brenthurst Foundation reveals that a significant majority of South Africans believe the country is heading in the wrong direction. Despite a general dissatisfaction with the state of the nation, the study shows that there is still a level of approval for the current government, particularly, of course, in the guise of the Government of National Unity. The findings reflect concerns over unemployment, illegal migration, and corruption, which are said to have eroded public trust in government. Let's speak to Ray Hartley, who is Research Director at the Brenthurst Foundation. Good morning to you, Ray, and thank you for your time. So this is a significant finding, is it not? Tell me about when the study was conducted and what questions you were asking that then revealed these levels of concern about the direction that the country is headed.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on air. The study was conducted at the end of February, beginning of March, ending on March 11, and it was done with a sample of about 3,800 people, which is a pretty high sample, more than double what is usually used for a national survey, because we wanted to get to the heart of some of the provincial and local government views. And it shows very clearly that people are dissatisfied. I think that 80% of people believe the country's going in the wrong direction, which is very high.
Yeah, 70% is a high number. So what were the indicators that you were looking for that cumulatively would lead to the conclusion that the country is headed in the wrong direction?
Well, I think that's just the answer to the question, do you think the country is going in the wrong or the right direction? And, you get that answer out of that. So it's just a straightforward overall impression that you ask of the respondent.
But do factors such as quality of life, I'm just wondering, did you have questions about the quality of life as well as governance, as well as economic opportunity?
Yes, no. So the economy is clearly the major problem. 72% say the economic condition is bad. And quite astonishingly, 53% say it's very bad, which is a really astounding number and a bit of a reminder of, how a lot of people are struggling at the moment economically and with jobs. So jobs definitely shows up as the highest of the issues identified by quite a long way. And illegal immigration, which I think is tied to jobs in a way because people perceive illegal immigration to be responsible for job losses for South Africans, and corruption and crime and insecurity. So, and load shedding and water as well, which are not really surprising. Load shedding had just sort of returned after a reasonably long reprieve, and I think it was back on the agenda.
Yeah. Lastly, Ray, there's a frustrating, there's an interesting insight that comes through about how the Government of National Unity, the National Governing Coalition, is perceived, as well as the two main political parties therein. What did you find in relation to that?
Yeah, it's quite clear that most South Africans like the GNU, or at least approve of it. I think compared possibly to the previous government, which had struggled quite substantially. So 60% say it's performing better than the previous government. That's not necessarily a rousing endorsement because I think it's quite a low bar. But what does back that up, though, is that the support for the ANC and the DA is up. The ANC up by about 3 points since the last election, and the DA about 5 points. And the support for the parties outside the GNU, like the MK party and the EFF, is down.
Yeah.
So this suggests, this kind of confirms the general view that people want to see this GNU working. I think there's a sense of crisis, and we need to get together to resolve it. I mean, that's how I would sort of sum it up. They want to see people working together to sort this out.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Ray Hartley. He's Research Director at the Brenthurst Foundation.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
So to me, today is a massive day for Mamelodi Sundowns. It's going to be one test for them as they now face up against Esperance.
Absolutely. Mamelodi Sundowns take on Esperance in the second leg of the CAF Champions League quarterfinal in Tunisia. The Brazilians hold a slender advantage heading into that clash, having edged Esperance 1-0 in the first leg in Tshwane. Here's Sundowns defender Grant Kekana.
We know what to expect. Our coach has also briefed us. But we've also been in the CAF for quite a number of years, so we know about the hostility. But it's something that we won't focus on, We just want to go that side, make sure that we're able to do the job, so we can make our supporters proud.
Well, the game will be live on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. Also in action today, Al Hilal versus Al Ahly and AS FAR versus Pyramids. Then Banyana bid farewell to Nompumelelo Nyandeni today in the second international friendly against Malawi. Nyandeni will play her 150th and final match for the national team as they look to build on their 3-0 win on Saturday, obviously preparing for the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. That match will be live on SABC 2 at 2:30 this afternoon. Elsewhere, Thembi Nkosi Watch has bagged Player of the Month award at Wydad Casablanca in Morocco following his impressive form. The 31-year-old has featured in 8 matches across all competitions from the Moroccan Giants and scored 1 goal. Then David Beckham's Inter Miami are reportedly set to offer Kevin De Bruyne a contract. A move to the US, especially Miami, is reportedly a big draw for De Bruyne and his family more than Saudi Arabia. Then there's some Champions League action tonight. Arsenal welcome Real Madrid to the Emirates for the first leg of that Champions League quarter-final, and Bundesliga leaders Bayern Munich and Serie A champions Inter Milan square off for a place in this year's semi-finals. In cricket, Mumbai Indians lost by 12 runs to the Royal Challengers Bangalore. RCB posted 221 for 5, with Virat Kohli hitting 67, while Mumbai took their chase to the wire, while Hardik Pandya hitting 42 from 15 balls but came short. And finally, in golf news, Tiger Woods is set to partner with Augusta National Golf Club on a golf course design and new learning lab school in the tournament's hometown. Woods Foundation will create a TGR learning lab school in Augusta, which will be the 4th such facility launched by Woods that's aimed at providing access to science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics education for students in under-resourced communities. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: Ministers Sparks Tau for Trade, Industry and Competition and Stelanda Beni Abrams for Small Business Development will today launch the R500 million Paza Shop Support Fund in Soweto. The aim of the fund is to support township economy. Police Union SAPU says the 3-day police summit starting in Kempton Park, Ekurhuleni this morning should not be another talk shop. The union says the summit should adopt practical resolutions. And the chairperson of the Rapid Response Team on Gender-Based Violence, Dr. Nadia Banon, says perpetrators of sexual crimes are able to escape punishment due to legislative loopholes. Her comments come as the country faces an alarming increase in cases involving the rape of minors. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy backlogging coming into Mbombela this morning on this R40 route. That is a collision scene as you come in from White River down through Rocky Drift and down in towards a sort of N4 ring road at the top there. It's a very serious collision with multiple fatalities, so just expect to be held up quite badly. R40 into Mbombela this morning. Gauteng not looking too bad. Hasn't been the worst traffic morning by a long shot. The real sort of standouts, Crown area. There was a crash earlier. There's now traffic lights down. Main Reef and Church. The M2 coming through to Main Reef at Press Avenue, that's out as well. Very heavy backlogging. Main Reef coming in, M2 from Crown going down that way. Church Street from the Mayfair side, Crownwood coming from Crown Mines, all very significantly backed up. Try and stay away from that one. Durban this morning, crash on the M2 North at Queen at Nundy Drive. So the traffic heading up from Spaghetti Junction on your way to the airport remains heavy. And Cape Town, lots of traffic. We've been warning about this. It's back to school, that's out of the way, but it is wet weather and the rain just moving into the region again. Heavy N1 from Belleville right through to the city centre. M3's at Constantia right through to Hospital Bend. M5 is around sort of Parkwood area. Ottery maybe up towards the N2. The N2 from Roberts Sebukwe all the way through to Hospital Bend. And the N7 northbound to Bosman's Dam still very slow. And southbound through Goodwood you need to worry about the roadworks just past Voortrekker Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Business Update on SAFM.
Say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. So Ndauling, there was this recent announcement by the EU around investment which includes the just energy transition in South Africa. Tell me what government is talking about now with the United Kingdom and Germany in particular in relation to climate financing.
That's right, Sulas. And just last month, the South African government managed to secure funding worth about $5 billion from the EU this time around. It's in talks with Germany and the UK to secure loans as part of the Just Energy Transition Partnership, a climate pact that the US recently withdrew from. Now, the potential loans from the UK and Germany could total nearly $1 billion and will be used to support South Africa's transition away from coal and towards renewable energy. Germany's KfW Bank is considering a loan of around $548 million to help capacitate South Africa's national transmission company, while the UK is exploring a loan of over $400 million through the African Development Bank to support municipalities in South Africa's coal belt with water and other projects. Now, despite the US withdrawal, the International Partners Group remains committed to supporting SA's just energy transition, and over $2.5 billion has already been disbursed from a total pledge of $8.3 billion.
And then, Ntaoleng, I don't take it lightly when you use words like acquisition spree. Has serious real estate been on an acquisition spree? And you're saying that it has given them a boost?
That's right. I mean, over the past 2 weeks, Thulas, we've heard of 2 or 3 deals from Sirius, and now we are seeing a trading update coming through, and they've
Sirius
confirmed
is serious.
very serious. So the property firm now expects earnings to be strong. It's forecasting a 12.8% year-on-year increase in rent roll, driven by strong organic growth and acquisitions. Now, the company says its performance in Germany and the UK was strong, with rent roll benefiting from higher rates and higher occupancy growth. Sirius expects its growth in income to translate into a meaningful increase in portfolio valuation, particularly in Germany, where the transactional market is improving. The company's strong balance sheet and ability to raise debt at attractive levels will also allow it to pursue even further investment opportunities. Now, the company's CEO, Andrew Coombs, believes the company's assets will continue to prove resilient and attractive to occupiers. We will get more detail on those numbers when the group releases its results in June.
Lastly, Ntaoleng, I think I can almost predict what's going to dominate, but just give us a sense of how the markets are likely to be looking when they open here at home, but also elsewhere in the world.
Tariffs, and more tariffs to less. But it seems like local markets are poised to start the day in the green as investors partake in some bargain buying. Still quiet in terms of company news, with global factors really moving markets. The rand, in the meantime, struggling to gain ground, taking a beating along with its emerging market currency peers. It's sitting at 19.47 to the dollar this hour. Stateside, things are looking up with futures in positive territory. Attention will slightly shift from the tariff narrative to Fed minutes being released tomorrow. Now, markets have changed their expectations, now expecting rate cuts, or rather 4 to 5 rate cuts from the Fed on the back of those global recession fears. So it'll be interesting to hear what the thinking of the Fed is when we get those minutes tomorrow. Lastly, in Asia, stocks are in the green, recovering from the past few days' steep losses.
All right, always right on the money. That's Ntaoleng Lechela. Thank you for that. Ntaoleng has kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours.
Switch to stream with SABC Plus. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime. 0 subscription fees. Download SABC Plus on Android or iOS and watch the Betway Premier Soccer League, the English Premier League, and the Bundesliga live. You can also catch up with Uzalo, Skim Sam, Generations on demand, and listen to your favorite radio stations live. Ukhozi, Umhlobo Wenene, Radio 2000, and 5FM, all for free. Switch to stream with SABC Plus now. No subscription fees. Stream anywhere, anytime with SABC Plus.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, he's got it! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 21 minutes to 9 o'clock. The Eastern Cape Education Department's new blanket ban on alcohol at all school premises, even during after hours or private fundraising events, has stirred up a considerable backlash. Schools, particularly Kirkwood High, which has been hosting the Spa Kirkwood Wildfeest, which is a major music and lifestyle festival for years, are facing severe financial losses as a result. The policy change has left many schools scrambling for alternative revenue sources to cover their operational costs, as the ban directly impacts their ability to host lucrative fundraising events. Let's speak to Vuyiseka Mboxela, who is the spokesperson of the Eastern Cape Department of Education. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. I remember seeing much debate around this new policy around alcohol sales in schools, and I was never really sure about what the position was and what the position is now in light of the new policy. So if you can start with that, that clarification. What was the policy and what is it now?
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to SAFM listeners. You would remember that in education, we've got a blueprint document, which we call South African Schools Act, which it used to be the document that gives powers to the SGB, SMT, and also the school to decide on whether they want to sell liquor in the school for different reasons, as you have mentioned. But then at the time, they would seek approval from the MEC. And upon realizing that since 2019, when the current MEC came into office and until today, there's never been a school that has submitted a request to him to say, we are wanting to sell liquor at the school for these 1, 2, 3 reasons or in this fashion. But what we've seen is that the school just go in their own way and decide to sell liquor in schools for different events and different reasons that they put. And looking at the rate at which our own young learners and our own pupils are using drugs, are using liquor, and also are having violent acts as at and when they are drunk, the MEC then decided to review that policy and further made a circular and sent it to all schools that there shall be no school that buys liquor and sell it for any reason, be it they would argue that the event will be attended by all people.
Vuyiseka? Seem to be losing your line there. Vuyiseka, can you still hear me? No, we seem to have lost the line there to Vuyiseka Mboxela, the spokesperson of the Eastern Cape Department of Education. Let's try and get her back on the line. She was just in the middle of explaining the departure from the previous policy, which allowed school management teams and the school governing bodies to take a decision, particularly for events. I believe we have Vuyiseka back on the line. So that was the position back then, Vuyiseka. You were in the process of explaining the rationale behind changing the policy. You are saying that this was based on your concern for the levels of alcohol use, abuse, as well as the use of drugs among pupils. Vuyiseka, can you hear me?
It's not coming from, it's not a concern to us that is not coming from an experience. Remember, we were in the map as a province for the incident of Enyobeni, and one of the pupils that was there, it is a young person that was 12 years of age. And then, therefore, as an institution, where we mold behaviors and mold young kids, we can't then be the one that model them to be previewed to liquor at a very early age. And also, if I may just give you a picture of the school that is in the article that you read, which is Kerkut. Kerkut is in a very impoverished community. And it's a community that is largely dependent on citrus in terms of economic opportunities. That's the only biggest opportunity that people there have. And if you are like me, having stayed there for 2 years, you will find that it is a community that is so much drowning into liquor. And it is a community that, if as government we can just say, let everything happen as it is happening, in the next 10 years, you will be having 60 or 70% of the young people there drinking liquor. And it is in that viewpoint then that the NEC said, that is one area that we need to be harsh on, and that is one area where we need to be very tight, because we can't build a society and then have its own youth modeling liquor as the only way to do things.
So the big cry, Vuyiseka, is that these schools were able to host functions, especially after hours, and be able to then, sell liquor at those functions, which helped them raise revenue, which, I think you will not debate is much needed in terms of the context of the budget cuts and things like those. What do you say to that argument that says, for instance, in Kirkwood, they could have raised up to 700,000 rand from selling some of this liquor?
There are a plethora of activities that a school can do, including sporting activities, including tournaments, including cultural events, rather than just relying on one activity, which they claim is the one that gives them money. And also, you'd remember that we give all our schools funding. The funding that they cry about, which comes from the sponsorship, is a funding that is a top-up. And also, if they mentioned that supports them, there's a lot that that particular entity can do in rechanging how it gives support to that particular school. Because one thing that we can't do to us is to gamble with the future of our own kids. And remember, we're dealing with a very dynamic generation, young kids that are very excited, that want to explore things. And liquor is one of the areas which we know that as things stand, we are having a problem as a province, and we're having a problem just general as a society, because we've got kids that are coming from not so really good families. And when we then have them at school, it becomes their only hope for them to be modeled and be better people.
Right.
And it is therefore in that viewpoint, Thulas, that we must then try our level best as government to make sure that we put a good image so that they can at least have something to model on.
For the avoidance of doubt, Vuyiseka, for the avoidance of doubt, I do recall this conversation coming up. We are not talking here, are we, about in the past it having been a practice that some schools could sell alcohol during schooling hours? We're not talking about that at all, are we?
But the debate stems from the fact that we have that experience, and that experience has given us...
Which experience? No, I'm just seeking clarity, Vuyiseka.
Okay.
I understand the concerns right now center around events hosted mainly after hours, as well as fundraising events where alcohol is sold. But I'm asking the issues you are addressing with this policy. There was never a point where alcohol was being sold in any school in the Eastern Cape during schooling hours. And I ask this because I remember seeing it crop up in the public debate when you first introduced this policy.
There were schools that were doing that.
There were
schools.
Oh,
there were schools
okay.
that were doing that, and that is why we had then to come and enforce this policy. Because at the center of everything, Thulas, is to produce learners in our own institution that do understand that there's a school, and it is where discipline and modeling of kids takes place. Because it is a bit of a contradiction to say it's a school, in the curriculum of the school, you talk about bad behaviors, in terms of life orientation, but in the evening you do exactly in contradiction to what you have told learners during schooling hours. So we want people to accept school, and we want learners to accept school as a learning environment and where they must have their own future and their own character modeled properly.
All right. Thank you for your time this morning. That is Vuyiseka Mboxela, who is the spokesperson of the Eastern Cape Department of Education.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Bit of pressure around Joburg's Buccleuch interchange at this minute. The N3 going north from Limbro Park up to the interchange. The M1 north from Rivonia into the interchange. It's all because of a crash on the N1 north up by Allendale. So the highway towards that collision scene is busy, and the backlogging onto those approach highways very noticeable. Lights are still down Bowling and Kelvin, which causes an annoying delay for motorists coming south on Bowling, trying to get through to Santon. It's very slow going. And the Crown interchange really backed up to today. There's traffic lights out Main Reef and Press and Main Reef and Church. It's a double whack and a double sort of delay. So Main Reef in from Industria, outbound from City West, the Church Street option from Mayfair, Crownwood Road coming up from Crown Mines, all very heavy backlogged. If you can avoid sort of central Crown area, that'd be a really good call this morning. Durban, crash on the N2 going northbound up at Queen Nundy Drive, still slow getting up over Umgena Road towards that one. Bit of traffic on the N2 southbound, just approaching the Joyner Road exit, bottom of, or Dickens Road, I guess, 20 Hill, bottom of Prospect, and that's just starting to slow up on your way through towards Toti. And Cape Town, it's pretty wet. We've been warning about this morning. The rain was heavier. It went away for a bit, but it's just sort of come back. It's very sort of grey skies, misty, wet weather conditions, dangerous driving if you're pushing too hard and too fast. So the highways are really busy. M5 from sort of Kenilworth or Ottery right through to Maitland, M3 from Constantia right through to Hospital Bend, N1 from Belleville through to town, N7 both ways jamming up to Bosmansdown, south to Goodwood. It's all still very busy, but the conditions are rough, so make sure you've got plenty of time to get through and get through safely. And just a reminder of big delays on the R40, White River coming into a fatal crash just before the N4 Ring Road at the top of Mbombela. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
As the cost of living rises, from school fees to the price of cereal, you can take comfort in knowing that with Outsurance, you could save big on your car insurance. Savings that could make a real difference to your budget every month. Outsurance client Mikey knows all about it.
These guys are super fast, they're very helpful. My bank account is flexing.
Why wait? Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is all about giving you value for your money. Enjoy life-saving services like Help It Out, with 24/7 access to panic assistance, roadside assistance, and home assistance with just a tap on the app.
Feel good. That means that I'm being looked after.
Make today the day you switch. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. Limits apply. T's and C's online.
EFC is live this Thursday. From the wilds of Reunion Island and the ancient lands of Zimbabwe, two raging bulls meet for a heavyweight title clash as Elvis Moyo takes on Anthony Morrell. Plus Fahis Jacobs and Sibusiso Sovendile fight for bantamweight gold. EFC 122, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Eunice, good morning to you in Joburg. You want to talk to me about the upcoming game between Sundowns and Esperance. It's going to be a major one, won't it?
Yes, Thulasizwe. What I'm concerned about is that after the drama of the match 2 weeks ago, so that CAF somehow accepted Esperance's request to have the match, the DC report. You know, it was supposed to be in the match report by the 4th of April now for after tonight's match on the 13th. So that's somehow, I don't know, it's a bit problematic. But however, what Sundowns ought to do is also take into account the report from the Gautrain, because remember, these Esperance fans were given a free ride from Joburg to Pretoria on the Gautrain, and they vandalized the Gautrain. So that was before the match. So that could be some significant factor there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Second point, quickly, Thulasizwe, I just got 2 short points. You know, much has been said about renaming of Santon Drive to Leila Khalid Avenue.
Yes.
I don't know why the city of Joburg don't send in a request to the American embassy and say, listen, we've named the street after Trump. Decades ago in Selby, there's Trump Street there. Are you aware? and my
I did
final
not
point
see
to
that one coming.
and my final point to Thulasizwe, you know, Mike from Newlands has repeated the story about Mashatile and the rice story so many times. By now, he ought to be telling us what brand of rice it was, whether it was Peko or Basmati.
You're on a roll, Eunice. Thank you for that. That's Eunice in Joburg there. Of course, there is a street called, I think it's Trump or Trump Street in Johannesburg, and I've seen a few people making the joke that actually it should be renamed. Tim Loy in Wentworth, good morning to you. You want to talk about the man himself, Donald Trump?
Oh, yeah, this on the lights and out. Yes. Morning to you, Thulasizwe and the listeners.
Yeah.
Other day on radio, I was listening, and the one guy referred to O'Donnell as Tariff Trump. This on the lights and out. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah. No, I'm still with you, Tim Loy. Please go ahead.
Tariff Trump. This on the lights and out.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that conversation you're having with the lady and about this liquor in schools, now where does that stem from? My word, Thulasizwe. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, who gets up one morning and brings forth a point like that?
Yeah.
A suggestion like that or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, as a person got children.
Yeah.
Really, man.
Yeah. All right, Tim.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. That's Tim Loy in Wentworth. Let me go to Willie or Veli. Willie, Veli, how do I pronounce it? The Afrikaans way or the other way? Willie.
It's Veli.
Veli, good morning to you. Talk to me about the GNU,
Yeah, my name is Veli Okamp. I'm the national spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance. Thulasizwe, all these statements made by Deputy President Mashatile with regards to the fact that the DA's ministers should have hanged their heads in shame when they arrived at the offices, and talk within the ANC that the DA must be punished because they did not support the ANC's budget. This is where the problem comes in. This is not supposed to be an ANC budget. They do not govern alone anymore. This was supposed to be a GNU budget, and the ANC did not.
Vili, do I still have you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. The ANC expected us to support their budget, whereas this should have been a GNU budget.
Yeah.
They cannot govern alone anymore because they do not have the numbers. And I think it's very important that within this GNU, the parties must now come together and listen to each other. To have a deputy president criticizing ministers going about their work, going to work, do their job, and we saw the amount of work that DA ministers have done. They've done a tremendous amount of work. And I think this is not about the DA. I personally think that this is becoming a fight for the soul of the ANC in itself. And that is how it's going to play out.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Willie Okamp, the national spokesperson of the DA. Let me take a call from Yanga in Rosebank. Good morning to you, Yanga. You want to talk about Deputy President Paul Mashatile?
Yes, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Please go ahead.
Yes. Yes. No, you know, the problem with the Deputy President is that he lacks credibility, you know. Though what he's saying is true, but coming from him, you ask yourself, I mean, this is the very same guy, you know, who's a friend with Edwin Sodi, and he's been staying in Edwin Sodi's, you know, properties. And we know that, you know, Edwin Sodi's properties are proceeds of crime. So really, he lacks credibility, Deputy President. And I'm scared that one day we might have him as a president. Sure. But yeah, that will be said for South Africa when
All right. Yanga, thank you for that. That's Yanga in Rosebank. They're weighing in on the deputy president saying that if he were a DA member of cabinet, he would be ashamed to turn up as if, things are normal when they voted against the national budget.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Don't miss out. The Powerball jackpot is estimated at a staggering 110 million rand this Tuesday. You heard right. Play Powerball now for your chance at an estimated 110 million rand jackpot, and you could become Mzansi's next big winner. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Just enough time for me to take one more voice note, and this one is about China.
I wish all these countries can follow the decision that taken by the China to increase the tariff with 34%. I wish even the South Africa can do as China did. And if all these countries can do as China did, Trump will see that he did a big mistake. I'm Nkululeko Duma from Harding at Santombe in KZN.
Yeah, Nkululeko, thank you for that. And I think different countries are taking different approaches. I saw a report that suggested that Zimbabwe, for example, has responded by just removing all tariffs on imports from the United States. All tariffs gone. They are hoping that that strategy will work. Our government is seeking to have some kind of an agreement and a kind of a deal to say, okay, let's talk. You are calculating your tariffs based on the wrong numbers, wrong impressions about how much we tariff you. So let's talk and try and strike a deal. But then you have those countries that believe they have leverage and economic power that are simply saying that you tariff us, we tariff you right back. So who knows where it will all end. We do expect that there will be further reaction from the US president to the response from China on that issue of tariffs. That's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news.
In our top stories, Bazaar Shop Support Fund to be launched in Soweto and President Ramaphosa to address police summit. Good morning. Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Pax Tau and the Minister of Small Business Development Stella Ndabeni will launch the R500 million Spaza Shop Support Fund in Soweto today. The fund aims to support South African-owned township community convenience shops, including Spaza shops. The support entails the initial purchase of stock, upgrade of building infrastructure, refrigeration, shelving and security. The South African Policing Union, SAPU, says the three-day police summit, which will start in Kempton Park, Ekurhuleni this morning, should not be another talk shop. The union says the summit should adopt practical resolutions. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver the keynote address. The summit is an attempt to address the country's high crime levels. It will reflect on current policing approaches and develop more effective methods for the police. SAPU spokesperson Lisiba Tobachale says the summit should also look at issues